Hello and welcome to the project meeting about the Stop the Clock. There's someone from Cornwall Council coming and the campaigners are here saying let's not cut down these 2 trees because they're fine, and there's a lot that's going to come up because as far as we understand from the UK's leading tree protection barrister, the removal of these trees at this point would be unlawful. So well, welcome and on in.
I don't mind any recording or anything.
That's great.
It's the world we live in.
Are you Phil?
Yes.
Okay, hello. How do you do? I'm Zoe.
Okay, I'm sorry. It is just, it happens now, doesn't it? Yeah. I don't look very good. Have you got my right side there?
None of the screens, don't worry.
Well, we never like what we look like ourselves.
Exactly.
Or sound like.
We just a couple of minutes to 6, so last opportunity to fill your cups or words before we start. We'll pick up in a minute or two. That's all. Okay. Last few arrivals. Hello. How you doing? You're waiting. No, you're not late. Hello. Yeah, sure.
Hopefully everybody's alright. I've just taken a photo. That's alright.
Mark's just going to see if anybody else.
Almost officially started. Okay, good evening everybody. Thank you so much for coming out and joining us on a Wednesday evening. My name is Laurie McGowan. I'm the Cornwall Council at the Falmouth, which is where Trelawney Road and Tree Trees are based. Really pleased to be here this evening for what is an important meeting, which is part of a long conversation, a long process in terms of the intention to remove and replace the 3 trees that we know on Trelawney Road. I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping, a bit of an introduction, and then hand you over to Phil Mason, who's the Strategic Director for Strategic Growth and Place from Cornwall Council, who's going to give you some information from Cornwall Council's perspective, and then open things up for Q&A for the evening. So first of all, also thank you to Mark and Falmouth Town Council for hosting this evening's event, put together at fairly short notice. So if you've not been here before, we've got toilets at the back, teas and coffee and refreshments just down there, and there's no fire alarm planned for this evening, but if there is, then we all follow Mark out there, down the steps, and then into the mall.
Struggle to keep up.
And there's a lift. Much different side as well. But no plans for that. Just also say if you've got your mobiles, thank you for demoing that. Put them to silent, please. That'll just help things once we get going.
Hang on, somebody else is trying to get in. You go round the side, Up by the 7 stars. Shall I go down?
Just grab a seat.
If they go to the front of the building, then get in that way.
I think it's because it's dark. It's quite
Yeah. I'll go and intercept them.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll get some more chairs at the back there, you know. Okay, so just as we were saying, this evening is a really important event where Phil has committed and come down to engage with members of the wider public in this really important issue. My role as Cornwall Councillor. Hello, coming in, grab a seat. These are okay.
There's more. We did say 6 o'clock.
Hello. That's fine, thank you there.
Want to get us to the back.
Okay, sorry, start again. So my role as Cornwall Councillor for Falmouth, Wenwick, has really been over the last 12 months engaging really closely with campaigners, Stop the Chop, Debs, Terry and Amanda particularly, in listening and understanding some of the concerns that they've got in the community, but also working very closely with officers at Cornwall Council to understand, bridge and help facilitate communication. Really appreciate this is an emotive issue. There's different views. I think after a long period of engagement and consultation and 3 failed attempts previously to fell the trees, it's fair to say that positions remain a difference of opinion and opposed from where we are tonight. There's been a proposal from Cornwall Council to start action next week, but a public meeting was a really important step along the way to make sure that there's communication, understanding, the ability for the public to put questions to Phil and Cornwall Council and to listen to the responses and the answers, you know, as we progress. So that's the plan for this evening. Again, really thank you all for coming out. A couple of points just in terms of moving forwards. From my point of view as a Cornwall Councillor, and I know Falmouth Town Council as well share the same thing, that though there are high feelings and emotions around these areas, in public meetings I'm really keen and won't tolerate sort of any abuse or swearing with anybody really. So I want everybody to manage their own emotions this evening. If people are getting quite agitated and upset, then we'll ask you just to take some time out and if you need to go and step away to calm down and come back again. If people continue to be agitated, then we may ask you to leave the room and step away from the meeting. I'm sure it won't come to this, but I just want to manage expectations right from the start that any aggression or swearing things will not be tolerated. So Unless anybody disagrees with that approach, I think we've got a group consensus that that's the way we'll take things forward with politeness and respect this evening, despite the strong feelings that people have on this issue. Is that okay?
Can I just ask, following on from that, how do people ask questions? By raising their hand, not by shouting out, I'm imagining.
No. What I'm going to do now is hand over to Phil and possibly a raising of hands, and we can take questions as we come, if that's all right.
Can we say that all questions will be answered? So there's no, if you have a question, it will be voiced and answered. Is that fair to say?
No question, there's no question you can't ask.
Yeah.
I will tell you if I can't answer something
Understood.
and why.
But I
But
think
I will try and answer.
all I'm saying is that people at the back, you know, if there's a fair bit of debate going on at a certain point, other people may feel they're not going to get their question in. So can we just say, if you've got a question, you will get to answer it.
Yeah.
You will get to ask it.
Let me.
Is that fair?
Pretty handy.
Is that agreed?
Sorry.
Is that agreed? All questions will be
let
addressed.
me try and explain how I'm going to try and run it. So, hi, if I can just start. So, hi, I'm Phil Mason. I'm one of the strategic directors that essentially are the senior leadership team of Cornwall Council. Highways are my responsibility, trees and environment's my responsibility, so there's no way it's not squarely my responsibility, so that's why I'm here. As officers of the council, we of course work to our political administration and the politicians who get elected and our cabinet, and Councillor Dan Rogerson is the portfolio holder, the person who sits on the cabinet in respect of highways, and cabinet said for Dan Rogerson to be the nominated lead person for this issue. But in fairness, this issue started before he was elected and before he was on cabinet, before he was ever on Cornwall Council, and it's become an issue which we've got to this place because of a set of decisions that haven't been taken politically, that have been taken operationally, legally within the council. And I thought it was best that I come and explain that, because I am the senior representative of those processes and those systems. So just to explain that for the start. And I also said I don't want this to become a backwards and forwards conversation, a defensive conversation for my technical officers and the public. And that's why I've asked them not to come as well. So I've come and I'm holding the responsibility for what the council has done and is proposing to do, and it's a straightforward conversation with people. So I'm Phil, I'm here, I've got my coat on because I've been cold all day. At some point I'll warm up, I'm starting to get a bit warmer now, and I'll take it off. I've not kept my coat on because I'm not welcome. I've always felt welcome coming to Falmouth, whatever, personally, professionally. Coming to have some difficult conversations and meetings, it's absolutely fine. I was absolutely asked whether I wanted any security for this meeting, and I said absolutely not. These people are just a community, normal residents. I have no fear that we need any security, and thank you, Laurie, for what you're saying, and people do get heated. We appreciate that, don't we? And as Laurie said, it's great if we can just appreciate it. The other point, I think, is the point that's been made. I think we need to allow time for everybody to answer questions, and what I found in a lot of public meetings is some people do like to ask a lot of questions. Well, that's fine, but if we can just make sure that everybody who wants to have a say has a say, rather than it being dominated by one or two people. And I'm not looking at anybody. I'll stop in a moment and then you can ask any questions about the process and how we're going to do this. I'm going to just talk a little bit about where we've got to and why. And then I want most of the time to be for you to be able to ask questions, and for me to try very hard to give you an answer or explain why I can't. So I've been involved in this since...
Can I just ask a question? Yeah. That is kind of key. Is there anybody taking notes, or is it being recorded, what is being said?
Okay, let's come to that. I'm not. Somebody is.
Yeah, we have a live stream over here. We're going to
Alright.
try and document everything. I'm also taking an audio record. But
Yeah.
any additional notes and recordings are great, so we have backups.
So I think it's become quite normal in meetings that social media is so prevalent now. We even do it on our own meetings, we record them. So I just wanted to ask people, it was one of the points I was going to make, is is everybody content that it's recorded? I think it's just part of what happens now. But if I wanted to ask everybody, because normally courtesy in meetings is we ask people in the meeting, so if nobody's going to object to that, I'm not objecting to it. Okay, so I think that's probably answered that question, if that's okay. So, in terms of how we're going to hold the meeting, I'm going to try and share it as well as talk to you. I'll try my very hardest, but there are a few people round, Mark at the back, who can spot and indicate if you think people haven't had a chance to come in or if I've missed somebody. Is that okay, about how we run the meeting? Am I talking loud enough? Does anybody need me to speak louder? Actually, that's a daft question, isn't it? Because if you were back and you couldn't hear me, you wouldn't hear me ask that question. On the basis of that already asked a daft question, I will start and I'll give a little bit of an explanation, but not in detail. I will expect the detail to come out through questions and answers, if that's okay. So I'm going to give you a sketch view of this. And to do that, I got involved in this after the event. I got involved in this after the event in the sense that we were locked into a pattern as the council when I started to understand what was going on, and it was highlighted to me that there were issues in the town about the removal of the 3 trees in Trelawney Road. Why didn't I know about that? Well, that's a great question. Why didn't the person who is now the head of our legal services or his predecessor know about it? I think those are good questions, and I'm going to get into that a little bit. Because essentially this has been an issue that has come up and has been resolved by the council at a very technical legal level. So why didn't divisional members know about this? I think they did, but they didn't recognise what the issue was and how important it was and the consequences of some of the things that happened. So I think that we collectively, both the councillors, the cabinet members and senior officers of the council, have inherited this. And I'm not saying that to say it's other people to blame. I'm just saying that actually, because it's pointed to within the council, it's pointed out to us that something has gone wrong here, because essentially something that's really important, the taking down of 3 mature street trees, has happened somewhere in a corner. I'm just trying to illustrate this, without people understanding and being aware of what's really happening. And I think as a council, we've obviously got something wrong in that space, and we absolutely have to learn from that. Does that mean to say what we're trying to do is the wrong thing? I think that's a completely different question. But how we got to this position, I absolutely accept, isn't good enough, and the council needs to learn and absolutely committed. So Paul Grant, who is the council's monitoring officer, and that means he is there as our senior legal advisor, and also he's the person who makes sure that we essentially practice and run the council in a way that is absolutely in the public interest. He's absolutely square on to this, that what happened, it happened for the very best reasons, but it wasn't done in the very best way. So nobody's been malicious in this. Nobody's done anything purposeful to say, nobody tried to do something sneakily, none of that. But the way in which it has happened has pointed to the fact that our systems mean something that's quite publicly, demonstrably important hasn't had the profile that it should have had, and people are therefore able to understand it and therefore input into the system. So I would start off by saying the council has got a lot wrong in this. Coming here tonight, I really wanted to try and explain where we are and why we are now proposing, and I'll start with that, to take those 3 trees down. Because I can't stand here and pretend that isn't the proposition. We have not made the final decision. We haven't pressed the button to do that yet. But I'm coming with a mindset that I think those 3 trees need to come down, and I want to explain why. And through the whole of this process, and you've got some fantastic campaigners in Falmouth, and the people in the room, Stop the Shop representatives, have been absolutely fabulous in terms of holding the responsibility on behalf of the community and challenging absolutely everything. And we've sat in meetings, and Laurie himself I think he's written an email into the council about this every third day, or even every day at times. He hasn't stopped asking questions. So, and absolutely rightly, sometimes I've sat in the room and thought that's a really good question, we need to go away and find an answer to that, and we've done that. But we have been through this a lot, and I'm just being honest by saying, despite all of that and everything that I've seen, I still don't think there's any other alternative than to take the trees down. And I'm going to come back to that. Can I conclude and then I'll come back to questions? Is that okay?
I just wanted to ask, have you been in the house and have you seen the problem? That's all I wanted to know.
I'll come to that because it's a good question, but let me just get to that because I'll explain where we are. So, why do I say I think the trees need to come down? Because of that very point, that I genuinely believe that the trees causing damage to a neighbour's property. What I know is that I've seen evidence I haven't been in, but I've seen photograph evidence, I've seen the survey evidence, I've seen all of the evidence that was submitted as part of a process whereby the council earlier did agree, and agreed within the bounds of a court decision that we were causing a nuisance, we were causing damage by those trees, and therefore we were obliged to take those trees down. Now, it can be said, what are the other interventions that you could have made rather than take the trees down? Could you put root barriers in? Can you do all those sorts of things? What are those other options? We have looked at all those options, and we've taken advice, and I genuinely don't think there's any option. Now, let me be absolutely clear, I don't want to take any trees down. I think I have to take the trees down. I don't want to. I want this council to plant more trees. I want this council to protect trees. I'm responsible for roads and trees and the environment, and I am finding things that are getting in the way of people of not being able to plant as many trees as they want. I want people to plant more street trees. I want people to plant more trees generally. We have an agenda as a council to plant trees, so we wouldn't be taking these down because of some ideology or policy or decision that it's easier not to have trees in the road. The council wants more trees.
I think you're missing a pertinent point here. The man who bought that house knew the roots were there when he bought the house.
Let's come back to questions in a moment. So I'm nearly finished, so we'll come back to questions. So, why are we here? Because the evidence points absolutely clearly to the fact the trees are causing damage to a property.
So we're going to come back to absolutely clearly in a fair bit of detail.
I'm just going to say that we agreed that questions would be afterwards. So
Yeah, it's
if
just
you
an
can wait,
observation, actually.
if you can wait.
I'm a couple of minutes from concluding what I was going to say. So, can we take the trees down? I believe we can. We have to. I've said why, and we can come back to that in a moment. What would stop us taking the trees down? If some new evidence that we haven't considered before might come up, don't know. Ecology could stop the trees coming down, but we have just undertaken the further ecology survey of the trees, and there is nothing from that to say we can't take the trees down. We absolutely have to, before we actually take the trees down, do a further proper ecology check on those trees to make sure there's no nesting birds or roosting bats. And if there were, we wouldn't be able to take them down at this point of time. But at the moment, my predisposition is that we will have to take those trees down unless there's birds or bats found before we actually undertake those.
So this is a second survey that you're proposing?
We'll come back to, I'm going to come back to questions.
No, just to be clear then, this is the second survey, one done a week or so ago.
Oh yes, we have to do a site.
Yeah.
Site
This is a further survey.
A site on site at the
And when
time.
are you proposing to do
In the morning before the trees are taken down. Has to be done because you have to know before you take them down that those animals haven't come and started to
How
nest.
do you do that in the
We have somebody there.
You
We have somebody
there.
there.
But that's a hibernating.
We have the experts who can check. I'm going to 1 minute and then I'm going to come. So that's where we are. There's lots and lots of detail in that. but I could go on for an hour, and it's just all technical detail. It's better if that comes out through questions and answers. So I'm going to pause and then take some questions. So I notice people have already said something. Somebody's got some questions. So
I'd just like to say, so you just outlined the things that would stop you taking the trees down.
Yeah.
You didn't mention breaking the law being one of them.
We can cover that. That would be a question.
All right, here's a question.
No.
Sorry,
my hands up.
we're not going to tolerate filibuster. All right? So that is a question. Breaking the law. Please address
I know
it.
it's a question, but what I'm trying to
Filibuster.
This is not nicey anymore. You know,
Excuse me. Right. Let me be clear. Let me be clear. I can run this session and I can take questions and answers in a polite, you put your hands up way,
All right.
and I will come to you.
Breaking the law.
And I will come to you individually and I'll answer the questions, or we can all shout out and I can't manage a meeting. It's got to be one or the other. I have to be able to manage a meeting. You're not necessarily going to like the answers. I've come
We're not getting
here
answers
committed to explaining and answering questions, which I'm committed to do, but I have to do it in an organised way or we're never going to get through the evening. Please. So if you put your hand up, the lady at the front put her hand up first, and then we'll come to people as quick, as orderly as we can in the way in which people put their hands up. So the lady at the front, please come in first.
Yeah, I'm concerned that you didn't include breaking the law in your
Okay.
reasons for not cutting the trees down.
Okay, thank you. So, according to the council, you might not agree with this, but we absolutely have the right to do this within the terms of the Highways Act. We absolutely believe we do. We've checked that. Let me just explain. We've got a monitoring officer. He is the chief legal officer of the council. He acts in the public interest.
Really?
He doesn't have any, yes, he's appointed to do that, and he's answerable for that. We have checked across with external legal representatives at KC, at a barrister level, and that's the answer that we've been given. I, therefore, as a senior officer from council, have seen that, I've been advised of that by the people who are responsible for advising me about the law, therefore I believe I'm acting in accordance with the law.
Is that some? I think the thing that is missing here is why haven't we seen that? Because if you've had that external counsel and you've got that written report that you've seen from, why can't we see that? Why can't that kind of, we've got our stuff that our barrister has provided. Where's yours?
Well, Paul's been at the meetings, and Paul's clearly said that that's the case. I know about the barrister.
Different to see.
But legal advice generally is taken to protect people's positions. And
So is it
to
written?
understand that.
Is it written?
I don't know the answer to that.
Oh, but you've seen it.
I've been clear.
You've seen
You
it.
said you'd seen it actually.
You've seen it.
So
And you don't know whether it was in writing.
let me answer the question.
Yeah, please.
I have seen written legal advice that we can, and it's legal.
So you
and
don't
So why can't
no,
we see it?
I'm not necessarily going to
And why not?
provide it.
Yeah.
And why not?
Because I will ask the question of Paul whether he's happy to provide it or not, but it's his jurisdiction to make that decision, not mine.
But can you see how that sort of undermines
Do you know, it's just
everybody's
untenable.
everybody's confidence?
It's
I
absolutely untenable.
It isn't untenable, but
No, you can do it, but it's untenable.
there's a lady at the back, and then I'm going to come to the lady at the front and then over
I
here.
think for me, it's absolutely a question of trust. I don't trust Cornwall Council. Absolutely. Why should we trust Cornwall Council? That man is walked off with £107,000 plus, in the past, what he walked off with from the public purse. He bought that house. I phoned up about that house in COVID, it was a sale, and I rang. And the agent said to me, there is a problem with something to do with tree roots.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, well, I'll have to think about it. And it was COVID, so I wasn't particularly keen to go and look at the house. And I decided not to go and look at it. But had I bought that house, I would not expect to buy a house, having been told by the agent, or even my surveyor, that there was a problem with tree roots, and I would not have expected £107,000 from the council, because I knowingly bought that house, and I did it with the one that I'm in now. I bought with a problem that I knew existed. And it's absolutely a question of trust. I simply don't trust you an inch. And you have, that man is exactly right. You have filibustered your way from the beginning of this, trying to be a little bit jokey
Can I just unpick that? The trust issue, I can't do anything about other than come and just talk to you. The point about the house and the nuisance and the damage is really, really clear. The fact that you sell a property and it moves on from one person to another has no bearing on whether the trees are causing a nuisance to that house or not. Nuisance is a statutory thing, and if there are roots damaging that house, it's a nuisance, doesn't matter who owns it. So it doesn't matter that he knew, or she, or whoever knew that those roots were causing damage to the house when they moved in. The only people who can prevent that nuisance are the people who are causing that nuisance, and in that respect it's the council. Those people cannot prevent that nuisance themselves because the trees which are causing the nuisance are the council's trees. So it doesn't matter who owns it, the only people who can deal with the cause of a nuisance are the owners of the trees. In this respect, the council owns the trees. So we still have a legal duty to stop the nuisance and the damage to the house, doesn't matter who owns it.
So shall we talk tree roots now?
Right, I did say I was going to come to... Sorry, let me just finish with the lady at the back and then I'm going to come here. Lady,
Why was the payment secret? Why has it all been secret?
because it's on part of a out-of-court settlement agreed within the auspices of the court, and out-of-court settlements are absolutely confidential between parties, and we're not allowed legally to break the confidence. That's why. The lady here, I'm do this in order. The lady here.
I'd love to hear you speak more about some of the other solutions, like you mentioned, blocking the trees, and I apologise, I'm a bit late to the party, so I apologise if this is retreading ground. I'm also not that knowledgeable, and I'd like to caveat that with, I've seen research from Japan, and a common practice in Japan is that they will wrap the root ball of a tree and relocate, and I'd just love to hear more about the different options that were explored.
Yeah, so fundamentally the tree roots spread, and this is part of the problem, they essentially spread within the road, within the highway, within the pavement, and then into and under the property next door. Really, the only alternative that you could do in that circumstance is sever the roots, because we don't have any jurisdiction on that property. We've already agreed that it's causing a nuisance, and we've already agreed through a court settlement that actually the only remedy is to take those trees down. But we have explored whether we could cut those tree roots within the confines of the public highway, the road and the pavement. And what the evidence shows is you'd have to chop so much of those root systems off that the tree will die in any case and become unstable, and you can't tolerate that within the public highway. So realistically, that is the only alternative. I'm not aware of what the Japanese may or may not be able to do, but from what we can see and the advice we've got, is severing the roots is the only tenable option given how they spread through other people's property and the road. And that isn't tenable because it will in fact kill the trees and it will cause them to be unstable. So that we can't do that. We
Shall
can't
we drill into the roots a little bit?
So there was a lady here, was it here I think?
It's me.
Yeah, can we come to you?
Thank you very much. And responding to the one at the back, there is an issue of caveat emptor here. If you're going to buy a house, you do have a survey, so they knew about it.
Almost a...
Why on earth? Yeah, and I understand that yes, as highway authority, the council is responsible. But how come they must have had some reduction in the selling price because of the subsidy or heave or whatever it is? Why on earth has the Cornwall Council paid out our money to people who knowingly bought a house that was damaged? I wouldn't, as the woman at the back said, I wouldn't touch it with a barge pole. They must have known something, that they could do something.
Can I just say that nobody actually knows the extent of the damage, and that's really, really pertinent
That's
here.
interesting, yeah.
You know, it's not subsidence,
No.
it's not heave. Nobody knows the extent or less of the damage and whether one tree is causing the problem or all three.
Yeah.
So it's a case of proportionality,
Yeah.
and the council will not tell us that. So therefore,
Well,
we have to trust their word.
It's the secrecy, it's our money. And you're not telling us.
I am absolutely
wrong.
I am also very livid that we have agreed something through a court process, that means I can't be straightforward about those things.
But it's your fiduciary duty to actually tell us it's our money.
It isn't. It's our fiduciary duty, sorry to argue, to act to protect the public interest. And I genuinely believe that the intent of having a settlement was to protect the public purse, to not pay out any more money. So let me be clear with you. If I own a house, okay? If I own a house and I've got trees next door to me in the council's road and they are damaging my property, and I say your trees are damaging my property, and the council doesn't do anything about that.
They were already doing it.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter because the council, the only institution, the only people who can change that, because they are the council's trees, and nobody else can do that, so only the council can do it. So I've been arguing with the council for some time, quite a long time, that those trees need to come down. I'm not going to be happy if the council delay that and don't act upon it, and I have to go and argue it, and have to spend money arguing on it. And actually, in truth, I'm going to say, you spent 3 years arguing this, and you've now admitted that they've got to come down. Actually, I want to be compensated for all that cost that I've endured. So, in that circumstance, of course, a private individual is in their right to ask the council to maybe pay costs or a bit of compensation or whatever that is. But what we have done, we have tried to contain those costs to the minimum amount because we have admitted and know that those trees are causing that nuisance. So I keep coming back to the point that we know from the evidence that's been submitted, the evidence that we've seen, that they are causing damage to the adjoining house. Only the council can do something about that, and we have to do something about it. And that is not the fault of the house owner.
But
It's the fault of the council.
It's not the main house anyway, it's an extension.
But if it's your property, you're not going to tolerate somebody else damaging it. So I'm going to now try and take some more questions. So this gentleman's been waiting, I know. So I'm going to ask this gentleman, and then I'll come, I think, to the back, and then I'll try and come forwards. Is that okay? So the gentleman in front.
Yeah, I'm a bit confused about, you've said both that it's the result of a court decision and the result of an out-of-court decision that these trees have to come down. Where's the court decision?
So essentially we settled out of court.
So there was no court decision? I'm not the lawyer to explain this, but the lawyers explain it as it is a decision that's made within the bounds of the court. Just because you settle before you get into to a judgment doesn't mean to say it's not still within the bounds of the court. It's not
so
a court decision, sorry.
it's a decision within the bounds of the court. It's just made before you get there, but it is still bound as a legal decision that you have to honour, or you'll be straight back into court for not having honoured it.
Can I also point out that you cannot make a legal decision to do something unlawful? This is a very well-established point of law.
It is.
And we've had very good legal advice that to take down those trees would be unlawful.
We disagree. We do. We just disagree.
You saw it in writing, didn't you?
You're
going to provide it to us.
I didn't say that. I said I would refer that question to the council chief. No, I didn't. I said I would refer the decision to the council's chief legal officer.
You're beginning to look a bit shifty.
I'm not shifty. I'm telling you.
You are.
I think that is.
There's legal advice. I've seen it, but no, I haven't. I'm not going to show you. I'll show you somebody else who we don't know.
I didn't say I would show you the legal advice. I said I would refer that to Paul Grant. He's in charge of the legal service.
You've had a lot of time to pony up this advice that you haven't got.
I will just say that Dan Rodgerson did promise to give council
He
an hour
did.
of full response over a week ago, and I understand that no response has been received.
So that's shifty number one.
I am not saying to you that I was showing you some advice. I am saying that I will refer that. No, let's not get into this, because I'm not going to talk to you or have any more questions if you're going to get into a personal position. It is personal.
It's an observation.
It's a personal
observation about evasion, Phil.
Okay. Let me just step back a moment. If I'm drawn into a back and forth on something like that, of course you're going to put me in quite a defensive position, and you're not allowing me to answer the questions because you are drawing me into an argument. And the human nature is, just let me be clear, that in arguments you become quite defensive. So if you want the best out of me, I'm going to just try and be honest with you, and I don't want to get drawn into back and forth because it's not helpful. It doesn't get the best. I've come here with all intent to give you the honest answers that I can give you. It's not about tripping me up, because that isn't what the purpose of this meeting. The purpose of this meeting is for me to be as frank as I can about the situation that we're in. So that's how I would like to try and run it. But when we get into these tit for tats, it isn't helpful, I don't think, to the conversation. So I'm going to start at the gentleman at the back, and then I'm going to weave my way forwards, if that's okay.
Okay, so my question is, there's a couple of things that you said that I think contradict.
Okay.
So you said that when you came to look at the trees, you looked across all the different possible ways of dealing with them before felling. But you've also said that that decision to fell was made in an out-of-court settlement.
Yes.
So I'm just confused as to, was that out-of-court settlement just kind of, okay, we'll fell them? Was that, there doesn't seem to be any evidence that you have actually sat down in that out-of-court settlement before you got to court, sat down and actually hashed out all of the possible alternatives?
I think that's a really fair question, and let me try and explain how I have approached this. So, when I got to know about this, and I think it was just after Christmas or just before Christmas, December, I think, when we had the sort of last failed attempt to take the trees down, I wasn't really aware of this before then. So that there were earlier decisions which were taken at a legal technical level within the council to agree out of court that we agree that they're causing damage to a neighbour's property and we will agree to take them down. That had already been done before it was within my sight. I'm not abdicating responsibility, I'm just saying I didn't know anything about it. And at that time I came in and said, don't know what's going on here, let me have a look at this, and we spent quite a lot of time going through this step by step. We've had quite a lot of meetings and we've had quite a lot of questions. So since then, I've been taking an absolute personal interest, as has Paul Grant, who is the Council's monitoring officer and head of legal. And together, we have been probing this, and we've been calling to account the people, the advisors, the technical people. So Paul's been looking at the legal side, and I've been calling into account the people who understand trees and the environmental people and my highways people, and I've been asking questions. And since that point, I've been asking that question, is there any other way, mainly, let's be honest, prompted by the pushback from the town, is there any other way you can resolve this? Because I said right from the beginning, if I find there's another way we could resolve this, I am happy to default in a way on that agreement and to be hauled back into the court, because I felt that the public interest, the wider public interest, was more important. So if I am hauled back to court, I'm hauled back to court as long as I can explain why we haven't done it.
Okay, so just to confirm, just to make sure I understood.
Yes.
Just my that. So the decision to fell was already agreed, and you have post that agreement gone back and gone out, can we actually do this now?
Absolutely, because we were ready on site to take those trees down in December, and we didn't. Absolutely. We didn't take them down.
Because I was there.
Well, no, I've been open, haven't I?
Because I was there.
No, I agree. Because of
otherwise they would be down.
Because of the community pushback, I agree. We didn't continue with that at that time. And
the decision's already made to fell.
The decision had been made to fell, yes, I agree.
So it's not really, that's the issue here.
A decision had been made to fell, and
before any consultation.
And a legal agreement put in place.
Before any consultation.
Let me come back to that.
Okay, yeah, sure.
And a legal case had been agreed to take them down before I got involved in this, before we re-looked at it. Absolutely. But we stopped, we withdrew. Partly because of the police, partly because of people on site, we stopped and we re-looked at it. It cannot be right that a public organisation just carries on to try and do something when there is that level of pushback. It is absolutely right that you re-look at it and you ask that question. And right from the beginning I said, if we have not got this right, I will be happy to be called back to the court to explain why we haven't taken those trees down. Because if the public interest shows me that we shouldn't have agreed that, I'll go back to court and I'll get, whatever happens in court, I'll accept that because it's the public interest to do so. So Paul and I have been as one on that. We have absolutely said if we are hauled back to court because of decisions we've taken in the public interest and we believe they're right, we will go back to court and we will argue it. But what I'm saying is, since then we have been looking at those alternatives and those options, and I genuinely, today, cannot see that there is an alternative to relieve that nuisance and stop that damage. There's lots of arguments about whether they should have bought the house or not, or whether we've done the consultation right or not. All of those arguments, fine, they're arguments, but from my perspective, I haven't been able to see any reason or alternative that we don't have to take those trees down to abate that nuisance and the damage to that house. Because in law, that is the fundamental point. Are those trees damaging the house or not? If they are, if there's no alternative, I have to take them down. I don't want to take them down. I wish I wasn't here saying I have to take them down.
And it's we're
I
taking every
genuinely
tree
believe
to
they've got those 3 trees have to come down because all of them are causing that nuisance damage.
And
I
the
genuinely
agreement was to
believe.
abate nuisance.
I genuinely believe. I'm going to come to this lady here because I think she was next coming forward. I will come to you, but I'll come to the lady first.
Can I ask 2 questions? That was a clarification question. If it was agreed out for to fell the trees, and that is part of the legal, like you've done this legal agreement, you've got to take the trees down now. Where does the public come in that process? Especially since it was out of court, it's behind a Tomlin order.
Yes.
It's a lot of money as well. I don't think a lot of the people in this room feel that secret deals of that nature are in public interest.
Yes.
And so, okay, if you've got an agreement, you've got to cut down these trees, and then you get evidence and you look at the evidence.
No.
You still have to like cut down trees.
I think you've asked a killer question, but the bit, that last bit, I just wanted to just explain. I think the killer question is, should we have entered into a private agreement on something that has so much public interest? And I don't think we should have. I do not think we should have entered into that out-of-court settlement on an issue with so much public interest. I think that was a mistake by the council. We shouldn't have done it, but we have done it. Did we do it before we had evidence? That's not, we did do it on the basis of evidence, because the technical people were saying they agreed the trees needed to come down. So we were looking at it technically, environmentally, highway, nuisance. That assessment had been done, and that's why the agreement was put in place. It wasn't just willy-nilly put in place, it was done for the right reasons. Those people genuinely agreed that the trees needed to come down to abate the nuisance. So that's why it was done. Essentially, are we saying therefore we've only looked at the evidence retrospectively? No, we haven't. It was done before. My view is, and it does go to the question that you've asked, is should we have allowed that only to have been settled through a private legal agreement? I absolutely don't think we should, but that is the situation we've inherited. I don't think we should ever allow that to happen. But to be clear, it was done in the public interest. People who were doing that thought that they were protecting the public purse from further litigation costs, etc., by settling that at the point of time. So people quote a lot of money being spent, when if you hadn't settled it, the bill would have been even bigger. So the reason why those people settled was to try and curb the amount of money that the public purse was going to have to pay out. Because the more and longer you argue it, if you still agree in the end that it's your fault, you're liable to pay all of those expenses. So we were trying to protect the public purse. So I'll just come back to you and then we'll move on.
My other question was about the duty to consult.
Yes.
So there was legislation in place at the time listing like how to do public consultation.
Yeah.
I know Cornwall Council doesn't have a plan to redo a public consultation.
Yeah.
Would there be any scope of doing that just for, again, a public relations perspective?
Let me explain that, because it is a legitimate question, and we've put a lot of thought into that, because it has been asked. We did a public consultation. It was, we believe, lawful, but it didn't take account of all of the guidance that was in place in terms of the length of time. We accept that. If I go back in time, if I could, I might do that for a longer period and therefore cover that off. So we believe it was lawful. Guidance is guidance, it isn't statutory.
It was statutory.
So you believe that, but the advice...
No,
in the end,
Google it, Phil. It's in black and white.
I don't know, because
Don't you?
No, I don't
Yes,
think
you do.
I don't think that's true.
Let's not get drawn into
I think that...
Let's not get drawn into a question of fact.
No,
Do you know, I think we should.
So
I think you're just standing up there, filibustering.
I'm trying to answer the question of the young
No,
lady.
you're not.
I am.
You're trying to evade
I
the
am
more
not.
difficult questions.
Right, I'm going to stop you
Yes.
speaking in a moment
All right.
because I'm trying to answer other people's questions and you barging in to that conversation is not helping. I am trying to have a conversation. Hopefully other people are listening as well. Listening is fine, but let me speak to the people who asked councilman the question. Because I think actually the young lady
Yeah,
here
but
is
you're
really
boldly denying a point of law.
Right.
Now, would you address the point of law? Because I don't think
I'm trying
you can
to. I'm
you can't
trying
come
to.
here
I am trying
and
to.
misrepresent
Right.
the point of law. So you need to clear that up.
Let me be clear. On my point of view.
Yes.
To the young lady who's asked the question. To be courteous. So, we have looked at that point, whether we did that lawfully or not, that consultation. And the answer we've had back, including advice at barrister level, is that that consultation was lawful. It does not, what we did, was not wholly in accordance with the guidance that was in place at the time. Absolutely acknowledge that. And I'll just come on, therefore, do we need to do another one or not? The advice I've had back is it wasn't unlawful. I don't think it was unlawful. I've been involved in public law for a very long time, 30 odd years. I don't believe it was unlawful either. I think it wasn't perfect, but it wasn't unlawful. Therefore, where did we get to? We could have easily, if the choice was to just do another advertisement and just consult people again and that would have solved that problem, we would have done that because it would have been easy. But let me explain, but if we'd gone back out to do another consultation and done it, let's say over the 4 weeks that's required and done it in a different way, the view that I had and Paul had, and we agreed, was that that then would be a sham, because essentially we had already formed an opinion, and that new consultation was only being done procedurally to try and get over something that people have complained about.
Something unlawful.
And you can't undertake a consultation that is genuinely not going to change the outcome, because that is genuinely then a sham. So our view legally is that new consultation would have been a sham because we would have had no intention to change our mind off the back of that public consultation. So that, you may not agree with that, but that's the reason why we have chosen not to do another advertisement and consultation, because we genuinely believe that in itself would not be right and would send out a signal that we were consulting the community when we were not, and that would not have been the right thing to do. So I'm going to come to the gentleman who's very courageous for you. Also trying to keep his young baby.
Yeah, thank you.
Sweet.
So there's a first question and then a follow-up from that. So how many experts were consulted to advise that this was the best course of action, and presumably they were working independently of the council? So that's my first question, which you can answer now, or I can continue.
Go through your question and then on.
So then I just wonder if this sets a precedent going forwards, because this isn't the only tree-lined street in Falmouth.
Yeah.
I live on a street with multiple lime trees on it.
Yeah.
And I wonder, it seems to possibly be creating a system that's open for abuse, both by contractors and homeowners, because £107,000 is an awful lot of money, and those trees aren't necessarily going to get any smaller on those other streets. So is there a fear from the council, and is there a plan going forwards? Because this could happen in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, to hundreds of houses.
Yeah, I mean, I'll come back to your first question, I won't ignore that. But it does speak to a real issue, doesn't it? We've got a lot of trees planted that are now quite mature, in streets, and those streets were not built in a way to contain those tree roots. We have no intention of doing anything wholesale here at all, and I don't know of any other complaints in Falmouth or any other place that have been made, so I'm not got anything else like this on my desk at the moment. I'm not saying there isn't something waiting in the wings, but it's not, we haven't got complaints I can see anywhere from other householders saying the same thing. So I think in truth everything is done on its individual circumstances and merits. It is not going to set a trend. We know that somewhere like Sheffield took a view that street trees were a general nuisance and they went and cut more down. That's not where we are. Absolutely not. We want to try and keep everything which a street tree we possibly can. We genuinely are coming at it from that perspective. The Cabinet comes at it from that perspective. Your divisional members do. The Council is invested in building, planting as many trees as possible over the next 5-10 years. We've got this Forest for Cornwall initiative, which isn't just about, in the countryside, it is about street planting in towns, and we're trying to give trees away. We genuinely have an intent to try and plant more trees. I think this is a isolated incident, so I'm absolutely hopeful we're not going to get a queue of people. And this has had quite a lot of publicity, so if people were waiting in the wings to say, oh, and me, I think they might have come out by now. I honestly don't think there's that many others which are causing that sort of nuisance. I think this is quite isolated.
Can you address the gentleman's first question, please?
Yeah, your first question was about who would we consulted. We have taken advice from within our teams and within Cornwall from specialists. We have not gone out and got separate. That's just where we are. We've taken our own advice. We believe that those people
to consult multiple people in the way that if you were getting a builder to come and do work on your house, you would get more than one quote for being ripped off.
I would, and if I thought, honestly, having looked at those drawings and photographs myself, because I asked to be taken through that, and Paul and I asked right at the beginning, show us the evidence of what you've got, why you've made those decisions, and why you've given that advice. I've looked through that evidence, and I cannot see there's any other way. So if we thought this was grey at all, we would have gone and got a second and third opinion. I just don't think it's grey. I think it's really obvious.
But it's thinking, not knowing.
No, I'm applying my ability to look at photographs and evidence and say that is clear. If I was in doubt, I would have asked for more evidence.
You seem to be
I'm not in doubt.
an horticultural expert, a surveying expert. Hats off to you.
Well, can I just say, my own experience, I've had 35 years experience dealing with these sorts of things. I came out of university and I was a planner. I've dealt with street trees, I've dealt with extensions, I deal with houses, I deal with the law. So I am quite, I think, able to make a good judgment in these. And you might not trust that. I accept that you might not trust that. But I know when I need to go and ask other people to give me advice, and I genuinely have taken and seen what other people have told me. I haven't seen any of them from anybody else that points me to say I need to go and get some different advice.
We haven't.
No, can I just say that I think a lot of observe that an awful lot of the questions and an awful lot of the frustration and an awful lot of the kind of lack of trust is just coming from you're standing there and telling us these things, but we're not being shown any evidence.
Absolutely.
And there is evidence that there is only one tree root that is causing actual damage, structural damage to the property, to the house.
Yeah, let me just answer that.
And so we've seen that. So then
there is evidence. There is evidence, and it's wrapped up within the court settlement. It shouldn't have been. Speak to the young lady's point, it should not have been secret, it is secret, and I can't show it yet.
But in the public interest, the Information Commissioner's Office says that you should err on the side of public interest and reveal information rather than keeping things secret.
And if I could show it you, I would, but I'm being told I can't. I don't like that, but it is the situation I'm in.
But that's what's fueling the frustration.
So I think I'm going to come back to you. You have had one go, so we'll come back to you. The gentleman here, no, you, yes, and then I'm going to sort of weave my way forward. Is that okay?
Thank you. You said that you sort of came into this process quite late.
Yeah.
It seems like after quite a series of mistakes.
Yes.
You admit that you would have done the public consultation a bit more comprehensively, that
Yeah.
you wouldn't have gone down this sort of secret resolution route.
Yeah.
It looks like there's a sort of retrospective ecological survey going on. So if you know you're sort of here as a spokesperson, where are the people that make those decisions before you?
Well,
And what we're going to learn from this as well.
Yeah, so I take collective responsibility because I'm part of the senior team of the council. I just do. So I'm not blaming the lawyers. I'm not blaming my technical people. There have been mistakes. The ecology thing isn't about mistakes. It's about rechecking because things change with ecology. So why have we done a recent survey? Because we've delayed taking the trees down. There could have been birds survived and bats survived. So we do have to, that's why we have to go and check ecology, even on the day, because we have to be clear, otherwise we would break the law if there were bats or birds nesting or roosting in the trees. But in respect of the other points, absolutely I don't think we should have done a secret agreement. I don't think it's right when there's such a public interest about that. If it had been a pothole that didn't have any real effect and it had damaged somebody's property, agree, go and settle that out of court. Where it's 3 big trees in the highway, we've learned a lesson. That should not have been done in that way. The point about the consultation, yes, I would have preferred that that consultation had been more comprehensive. But the question now is, was it lawful or not? And the advice I've been given is yes, it is, and I think it is as well. But yeah, you left preamble. Let's keep going until you just concluded your point.
Yeah, so first on the survey, you're saying that you're doing one now because of things have changed. Was there an ecological survey before this decision was taken?
There's always been a survey.
Okay.
Before the court settlement?
Before?
I don't know. So let me be careful because I don't want to be accused of misleading you. Before the court settlement was undertaken, I don't know if it was because that was about damage to the house and the trees needing to come down. That wasn't about actually taking them down. The survey is necessary before you actually take them down because you have to satisfy yourself that you're not breaking the law by disturbing nesting birds or roosting bats. So really the ecology bit is linked to the action to take them down, and I do know that we've undertaken the right assessments before we've tried to take the trees down each time, yes.
Except that the settlement was called off and the police crawled all over you because you hadn't done that.
No, we did do that.
We were there.
We made an assessment, we didn't provide a report to the police.
You
and
lied. It didn't exist on the day. You lied.
We were there.
Well,
We saw it.
we didn't lie.
We saw it.
It's on the live
The
stream.
police
You
were
just
there.
have you just have it again. Sorry, but it's
Sorry, the person back there was speaking. I'm being
Why isn't there
what's
a
the
chair
word?
here tonight?
Impartial.
He wanted to be the chair.
I just thought it would
We
make
could have had a
your life
chair.
easier if we had.
It may have been, maybe a wrong decision, I don't know. Just let's
we'd like to
conclude
welcome
with let's conclude with the gentleman who's been asking the question.
Yeah, so it's just about the serious mistakes, and I appreciate that this is possibly before you came in, but you're
Well, I'm still responsible, but we did make mistakes.
But I suppose can you sort of, surely you can understand how it looks to a room.
Yeah.
It looks like it was fast tracked to avoid. It looks like one could assume that there was pushback to be expected here, and that's how it doesn't look to a room full of people.
It looks awful because we can't tell you what we need to tell you.
Individuals. It's things.
Okay. It doesn't look. I can see that. I can see that it doesn't look great. And that's why we should have never done something in absolute confidence. We shouldn't have done that. But I have got what I've got, and I've got a court agreement, an agreement wrapped up in a court process that I have to abide by, unless I'm confident that I've got a reason not to abide by it.
Well, you do.
And I don't have that confidence. I can't go back into court and
What do
argue.
you need?
I can't go back into court to argue the contrary case because I don't believe in it. I think that the original agreement in terms of what needed to be done is correct. So that's why I'm saying I've got to act within that agreement.
I understand, but I think the focus is on what happened before that agreement.
Yeah.
I think that's the real question here, what was going on before that agreement. It doesn't look like processes have been followed.
I think processes were followed, but it was done in a way that people did it for the right reasons. They thought they were containing the potential liability of the council, the public ratepayer, the taxpayer. So they did it for the right reasons, but sometimes we all do things for the right reasons and actually it ends up with a bad result, doesn't it? And that's what's happened in this case. Absolutely done to try and protect the council's interest, the ratepayer's interest,
but it just wasn't appropriate to keep something like this confidential. That's my view of it, and that's Paul's view of it as well. And we've said that right from when we got involved in December. Paul and I have been at one saying that. So if we genuinely thought we had a case to go back to court, we would say, I'm not taking the trees down, I'm going to go back to court and I'm going to argue it. But we don't think that, and therefore I can't be dragged back to court. Because if I am, I'll just sit there and say, I know that we should have taken them. I know I should have acted in accordance with the agreement. And then we'll expose the council to even ratepayer, to even more cost and expense, because we haven't got a proper argument when we go back to court. So that's, it wasn't great, shouldn't have been done in that way, but we are where we are, can't go back in time. I have to now just deal with it as I see it. So go to the gentleman, then I'm going to come across, because I think there was a lady at the end there. Yeah, this gentleman, then that lady at the end, and then I'll come to you one forward.
There's somebody in the middle you just keep ignoring.
Oh, I've ignored you.
Yeah,
Really
for quite a
sorry.
while.
Let's go to you first, because I think you were.
You was.
And then the gentleman, then we'll come across. So you,
Yeah, in the case of the public interest, can we launch independent survey of the tree roots in the section that's public?
We've done, what we have done are some trial ponds. So there is some evidence, and we've got some evidence within the public area, and the public area is a public area, so of course that can be done. What you can't do is anything on private land.
Yeah, but can we do one with more independent, non-council affiliated?
Well, you can't, because you can't
No,
damage.
but can you?
Yes, we could.
Can you do it?
We can, but we don't think we need to. But we don't need to. We don't need to do it. And it would be a significant expense, but would not get us anywhere.
Do you think it would be cheaper though, with the back and forth?
I think that
because
I'm not going to spend money, public money on something that is not going to achieve anything. I'm not going to do that. No, because that's part of the settlement. It's already done. It's already done.
At what point was the 107,000 given?
That is part of the confidential. Because I've not said that number. It may be in the public domain, but I cannot reach the confidentiality of that agreement. I can't.
Did the alarm bells not ring for somebody in the council at that time that this man is the deputy, he was the chief constable?
Doesn't matter who he is. Doesn't matter.
He has so much money.
It doesn't matter.
He's done it.
I go back to the. I come back to the point that there is a matter of law. If I own a house and somebody else is causing a nuisance to it, I can petition through the courts that nuisance to stop. Everybody here has that same right. If you've got a house, somebody's causing a nuisance to you, you can go to court and say, stop that nuisance. And that's exactly what they're doing.
He consciously made a conscious decision to buy a house.
It doesn't matter.
Which an agent had disclosed to me had a tree root problem.
It doesn't matter. The nuisance is still there. Whoever buys it, in what circumstances, it doesn't matter.
Once I own trust of anything.
It's a matter of public law. Have you? Did you have some more questions?
Is there really no way that we can have an independent study?
No, we're
in
committed.
the public area.
Not now.
Why
We can't.
not now?
Because we're under an agreement to take those trees down. We've got no logical, objective reason to do that.
But it's the interest of everyone in this room, and probably people outside this room that couldn't make it tonight, not a logical interest.
I've got to look at the facts.
Is that
So I've got to look at the facts of the case. I've got to say, we made this settlement some time ago, and actually we're absolutely in breach of the agreement at the moment, because we should have taken those trees down already. I can't do anything to delay that without a reason and rationale, objective rationale.
What about the fact the barrister said it's unlawful?
No, not to us, not direct to us, not the evidence we've taken. I haven't seen any evidence of that either. So I have seen nothing that tells me I shouldn't proceed and take those trees down. So I'm not going to expose the council, public taxpayer, to any more expense by not proceeding when I genuinely think we've got to proceed.
If it doesn't go through again, could you get those independent surveys of the public section to help move your process along smoother?
I don't know. We'd have to come back to that. I don't know. I honestly think there is nothing that... I go back to the point that I don't think there's any alternative. It doesn't matter how many consultations we do,
How many people come and look at it? How many people say that this is unlawful when we... It doesn't matter, because fundamentally, when I come back to it, I know that those trees are going to have to come down. Because there's no other way to obey the
The
use.
fundamental part that would matter is that the public would be able to see the independent ones in just the public section, and then you'd have more people that might see your point.
But the fundamental point is, do those trees damage the property? I believe they absolutely do, and they have to come down. That's the point. Well, we are appointed to deal with these matters on your behalf.
Are you messing it up?
No. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. We are the council. The council is there to serve the public interest, the very best it can, and it does have to juggle things. It has to juggle competing interests. It has to juggle this public interest with this private law matter. It does have to do that, but in this case we've got to a point where we genuinely believe we have to proceed with it. So I'm going to go back to that gentleman at the end, and then I'm going to come over here because that's what we said earlier.
So I just want to ask, we've talked about costs quite a lot tonight, and the cost of cutting these trees down has come to quite a lot, and you legally contracted to cut them down through the court settlement. So will it be cheaper to break that court settlement, pay the fines, or continue to try and fell the trees?
I think it's a question of what we should do in the public interest and in terms of... So as I said at the beginning, this was highlighted to me back in December, January, my first point was, if I genuinely think there's something in this that means we shouldn't proceed to take those trees down, I'd be happy to go back to court and face the music, as it were, to explain why. My problem is, I don't think there's a reason not to cut these trees. I think we have to cut the trees.
That's not an answer to what he asked, which was a really
I'm trying to. So it's not about money. It's about protecting the public interest and doing the right thing in public law terms. And I absolutely think that having looked at it, challenged it, looked at it again, there's no alternative. We were right to have agreed to take the trees down. We weren't right to do it in a confidential way, and we can't explain all that detail or show you the evidence. We should have never done that. But we were right to agree that the trees had to come down. So it was tested then, it's been tested again, retested. We think we end up in the same position. So I'm not going to go back to court for not having acted it out, because I genuinely don't think there's a case to do that. I think they are right. We should have to take those trees down. If I was the householder, I would want the trees down. I would say, we've got to get on with this, we've had enough time, and that's effectively what's been said.
Is it because they want to driveway?
I've just got another question.
And then we'll go over to the lady here.
Is there any proof of any formal or informal meetings between anyone from Cornwall Council and the owner of the house? Because this is quite a nuance, and most people wouldn't understand this. So is there any proof of that meeting?
I'm just going to unpick the question.
Yeah.
Because it's quite a broad question. So what are you trying to get at? You said informal meetings.
So it's quite a nuanced thing to be able to understand that you can go to Cornwall Council and say, I've got a nuisance.
Yeah.
That's quite a nuanced thing, and I don't think the average person would know that. And I think you would need to have some guidance through probably someone who works with Cornwall Council. And I want to know if there is have there been any meetings between the two?
So I don't know whether there were meetings between the owners, occupiers and council. Probably were, but they probably wrote in. I think public nuisance is quite a well-known piece of law, so most solicitors will immediately be able to advise you about public nuisance, because it is a very common thing.
I'm a town councillor and I didn't know that.
Okay, but whether it's water, whether it's damage, if your neighbours or something from your neighbour's property is causing you a nuisance, damage mainly, it doesn't have to be, it could be noise, it could be lots of things, but a nuisance, then in public law, you are allowed to get that nuisance abated. And generally speaking, that's a direct thing, either from you to your neighbour, so you could go to court and say, I've had enough of your noise, I'm going to go to court and I'm going to get an injunction to stop you doing that. Or you could come to the council and you could say it's a statutory nuisance, you council deal with it, and noise is a statutory nuisance, as an example. In this case, the council has both functions, because we own the trees, so it's our property, so we are liable civilly, but also it's a public nuisance. So in both respects, we are on the receiving end of that question. You're causing me a nuisance, you've got to stop it. We didn't do that immediately. We took a long time to agree that position. And even then, we didn't absolutely admit all of that, and there was something about that in terms of the way in which we advertised it, because I think we advertised it as potential nuisance. But what we were doing was protecting the council's position by not admitting that full liability in that full settlement. But the evidence shows that we absolutely are damaging that property, and therefore we had to make that agreement, because the only way to abate that nuisance was to cut the trees down.
So was that a yes, no, or an unsure?
So I don't know whether
just unsure.
That's
okay, thank you.
But we have had. So the reason why I was just asking about the detail of the question, absolutely would have come through their solicitors, I would have thought. So if that would be me, I would have probably written a letter to start with, and if I hadn't had a response, I would have got my solicitors involved to write a legal letter, and that would go into the legal department. I don't think there's any other sorts of informal meetings that happened at all. There's no evidence of that. This seems like an issue that was raised through solicitors as a matter of law to the council. Does that help?
Thank you for answering the question.
So, come to the lady behind.
So, an out-of-court settlement, certainly one... Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to you. Is that okay? The lady behind, I was pointing at.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, with all due respect, I don't think anything you've said tonight has done anything to restore our confidence in Cornwall Council for generally acting in the public interest, because the council, I'm not saying necessarily you personally, but they have been evasive all the way through and told actual lies. In February, we were all threatened with arrest for impeding the public highway because we were told there was an ecology report. It turned out there was no ecology report, so that was a lie. In March, we were threatened with arrest again. Around about that time, we were told that there was evidence that the tree roots were damaging underground energy cables. This turned out also to be false. There had been no complaints of any energy cables being damaged by the roots. So I'm just wondering when you're all going to start telling the truth and really convince us.
I think that the way in which this has been wrapped up in a legal agreement has absolutely not helped in terms of the clarity of the language which we've been using. In respect to the ecology survey, we don't have to do a full written report, you have to do an ecology survey. The police at that time wanted to see a report, and we couldn't provide it because we had done the survey, but we couldn't provide the sort of written report they wanted to see. So we accepted that position of the police because the police are there.
We were there.
I know, but the police are there to essentially deal with any criminal act, and they were concerned at the time that we couldn't demonstrate to them that we were acting within the law because we couldn't show them that written
even though
ecology
you
report.
said you did, your Cormac representatives absolutely went blue in the face trying to tell Inspector Rick Milburn that they had the report that you're talking about, and you did not.
And it was on its way, and the guy was then on holiday.
The gentleman was on holiday.
It was on his laptop, it was in draft.
But we couldn't answer his question on the day, and he stopped it.
And if they hadn't, those trees would have been down,
Yes.
and again, you would have been in error of the law.
No, because what I would say we have done is an ecology assessment of those trees. We have. We couldn't provide that report to him on the day. We withdrew because he asked that question. And that's been a topic of conversation between us and the police about what they need to see in terms of having confidence that we're doing the right thing. And that we absolutely believe now that we've provided that confidence to the police, and that is the only reason why the police will not stop us taking those trees down. If they still thought they were acting without that evidence, they would stop us, they would tell us, but they haven't done. They've agreed that we can proceed and take those trees down, so we have satisfied.
Well, as far as I can see, there are only two people in the whole town who think you are doing the right thing, and they're not at this meeting tonight.
Well, in actual fact, though, we they don't want the trees down there. They're ambivalent about it.
Well,
They've not pushed for it.
That isn't true. In respect of what I am being told directly.
Well, and in respect of what we're being told directly from a very good intermediary.
Why are they not happy to share the evidence? Is there
They don't have to.
evidence?
They don't have to.
No. They don't have to, but why are they not?
That's not a question I can answer.
It's
They
not
don't have
a
to.
relevant question.
It's a great question, but they don't have to.
Have you actually asked them to do that?
Yes. We've asked them to share a lot more.
But they have shown the evidence. It's out there in the public domain. We've all seen it.
Given all of the lies that have already been referred to, why should we believe that that evidence is actually compelling in any way?
Well, you don't have to believe it. I can't make you believe it.
No,
you can see why you might not believe it.
I can see that. I can see that. I can't. I don't think that should have been wrapped up in
Council consultation is providing evidence.
What do you define as public interest?
It is a good question, and I think it's probably a whole thesis, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I'm going to come forward to this lady who thought I was asking her last time, and then the gentleman.
So a court settlement and paying over £100,000 quite a significant action, I would say, for a council.
Yeah.
And yet you as a senior officer didn't know. So how many more court settlements could Cornwall Council be getting into without senior officers knowing what's going on?
So we have people, we're a very good council, so we are one of the biggest councils in the country. We have a lot of people essentially applying to us for compensation and things to do all of the time. So this is routine and it's happening a lot. Even, and I mentioned potholes before, a lot of people run over the pothole, damage their car and then send a letter in asking us for compensation. So that happens a lot. It isn't really straightforward because we also have insurers, and as you know from normal insurance cases, the insurance team normally say to you, can't admit liability, leave it to us, we'll argue it. So we've got insurers in the mix as well, and we have to allow them to assess the claim and look at whether they ought to settle or not. So this wasn't just us, it was also with our insurers. So it is quite complex. So I will absolutely say there are other claims happening in the council. And this is the problem, really. How do you sift out those which are going to be Trelawney Tree issues, and how are they those which are just routine, the insurance team go and deal with it?
You have a very big public consultation, Julie.
And well, we don't consult on all those claims, no. So we are absolutely looking at how, from all of those claims that are happening all the time, how we as senior officers would know which of those which need us to look at and to see and to be cited on. And Paul is reviewing how we do that process. So, and he will come back with some advice about what we can put in place to try and not allow this to happen again. I can't promise that it won't, but we will absolutely try and put systems in place so that these sorts of issues do get escalated and we see them.
Because it was a significant, I think you found out it was half court settlement. Is that right? Compared to the others.
I think in terms of total claims over a 4-year period, and this was across public liability and property and others, the quoted amount appeared to be a high percentage based on the total value, but there was financial elements in terms of when a claim is made and when a claim is paid isn't necessarily the same year, but looking at the broad figures it indicated was
And also if you look online at similar kind of.
Just in terms of that, I mean, for me, and this is one thing that I will ensure is done in place in terms of putting thresholds on that, so when a claim over a certain amount would trigger another pair of eyes on it, would be an easy way to sift out some. And also anything that requires, one of the key issues is around public works. I mean, works that take place on the street in this case, I mean, that should automatically be a red flag to then be flagged so that senior officers and potentially relevant elected members get input and insight.
Which is why the duty to consult exists.
So I think that's right. So I think answering that question about, I think your point that you replied was, would consultation be that point? I think absolutely yes. So signing up to a legal agreement over here to do something that then requires public consultation, I can't ever see that that's right. Because that's prejudging the outcome of the public consultation. And that does not feel right. So I think that absolutely is going to be one of those criteria.
So you admit that that first consultation was actually a sham consultation, just as much as the second consultation, which you said you couldn't do because it would be a sham.
I think that we had a position which we'd already been, so the facts are the facts, we'd already been to court and we'd agreed a position.
Right, so it was meaningless.
No, it wasn't. I think genuinely it showed something up that made us rethink our position.
Maybe if you'd run it for the 7 extra days, it might have shown something up.
Well, it was saying that there was an intent to take these trees down. That's the basis, isn't it?
Replanting scheme.
Of any...
Felling is very much in the bottom.
Well, okay, but in essence, it was saying this
responded to the
In our opinion, it wasn't.
We did consult, and I don't believe it was a sham, because I genuinely believe if issues had come up which we could have changed the course of action, then we would have changed the course of action.
But those issues wouldn't include very, very strong public opposition, like just about everyone who lives in
But that in itself wouldn't be enough to stop us.
Right.
And we
So that aspect of the consultation was completely pointless.
No,
you might as well not have bothered to fill in the...
So consultation isn't a vote. Consultation doesn't matter whether you have 1,000 people saying something or not, it's the issues that matter. So if people had raised issues that would have changed their mind, we would have acted on those issues.
So it's the evidence that counts, right?
It is the evidence, not the amount of
So
people
what is the
saying.
evidence here?
The evidence here is evidence that was submitted as part of the claim and other evidence that
One-
we've had.
One tree root, one tree, 3 trees coming down.
It's wider than that.
You say.
Specifically,
It is. There's many tree roots.
I have evidence that that's different.
Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep going. So the gentleman here.
Thank you, Phil. What level was the financial settlement and the other agreement? What level was that taken? Who signed that off?
I don't know, but it wasn't. It was done within either the insurance legal. It was done between the legal team and the insurance company.
Can we find out?
There was no oversight.
Somebody signed
It, yeah, I think we could probably find out who actually did it. I don't think that's a point. I think the point is because that I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the fact that there was no oversight in it.
I'm interested in that.
I think it was probably done at a lawyer, just a person who was appointed to set
But were
these
they
sorts
able
of
to
things.
pull strings? The two owners of that house, were they able to pull strings?
No.
You can do testimony.
No, there is not. What? The point is, I can't ever be 100%.
No, but we
because
know
I don't
that
know.
Charlie has been round to that.
We know
house.
So
we can't say that.
From my point of view, I can absolutely say Kate Canally had nothing and knew nothing about this. Absolutely not. She had no involvement.
You can't say what she knows.
If you can show me, anybody can show me any evidence to that effect. We have a number of...
We have somebody else bring over.
No, hang on, I'll come back. We have a number of people making that accusation, so we have had that accusation. We have a number of people who hold that office in Cornwall. It isn't just one person. And of course, the Chief Executive has an administrative role in liaising with all of those people who hold that position in Cornwall. And of course she does, and of course she has conversations with them. But I know, because I know when I got involved in this, that Kate knew nothing about it. I absolutely know that.
Well, she was on the phone during the second protest. She was on the phone during the second protest.
I think that's absolutely a conspiracy point.
No, it isn't.
I'm saying what I think.
It isn't conspiratorial.
I think it is baseless and doesn't have any evidence. The gentleman at the back says he's got some evidence. So I'm just going to pop only on this point because otherwise I'm going a bit out of order.
We've got full evidence. We have to take off. Do you see how that sounds to you?
Yeah.
I have complete evidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I've seen evidence, there's no doubt. You have to take my word for it.
I understand the point you're trying to make. But I'm trying to explain why I'm in this circumstance. I'm trying to explain it's a core settlement that bang streets, not so that. In respect of a point about Cape Canally, I genuinely know what I know. I genuinely know that when I started looking to this, she'd never even heard about Trelawney Trees. I genuinely know that. Well, if anybody's got any point, any evidence that demonstrates to you that you need to put it on the table, or send it to the lawyers, because it's a legal point that would absolutely be scrutinised, but nobody has submitted anything to make that case. I think there was a lady. Sorry, have we finished? Thank you. The lady.
Given that we're in the middle stages for environmental
Yeah.
Along with Lane, there's been sort of tree root barrowing that's been going on in the last 12 months. Why can't that be done to these trees?
We can't cut trees because the amount of roots that you cut off will destabilise the trees. And they will die.
Is there a report to that effect, and can we see it?
No, you can't say it. I've explained why, so I'm not going to keep going over it. You can't say it. But there is evidence, photographs and evidence that shows how much of that tree root, about 40%, is under that house, under the adjoining property. So if you chop those off, that tree will die, or those trees will die in any case, and they will become unstable.
It's worth saying that our cultural tree expert, let's call it, has a completely different view, and he thinks it is doable to put root barrier in, and he does it routinely, and the trees would be pollarded, and the roots could be sleeved so that they wouldn't expand. And there's only one tree root anyway, causing damage to that property. We have that on broken property. So it's just the council's view.
That's true. But I thought.
Oh, good. Yay!
That's true in respect of that's what you're saying. I have to take what I think is the advice that I am being given, and I genuinely have looked at the evidence that I'm being given, and I agree with it. That the trees have to come.
But we can't see it. We keep talking about public interest, but that information is very much in public interest.
And I've admitted and agreed that we should have never signed an agreement.
Yes, but you can break that.
We can.
You can break it in the name of public interest. That's what the information.
I'm not breaking the full agreement. I haven't got any ability to do that.
That report again from somebody else.
Because the people who own that property don't have to agree to do that. Because yeah, but you have to have access to their property to understand what's happening. Have you asked them? Yes. So I'm going to come to the lady who's been very patient in correcting me when things have gone wrong.
So, I'm not sure if I missed it at the start, but could you tell the group here what options you considered before deciding and determining that you needed to bring the trees down? What was considered? And my second question is, if you think strongly that there was injustice in having a secret agreement and an out-of-court settlement and you didn't do a public consultation, how can you remedy and rectify that for us?
So we have looked at whether we could essentially cut the tree roots at that point and put some form of barrier in, and whether that's plausible given the status of the trees, and we do not believe it's plausible. So that's the option that we've looked at. Could you do that? Within the highway, the public area, is there an option? But we do not think there is because of how much tree root spread there is in the adjoining property. The point about we believe we have done the public consultation, we did do one. I don't think anybody disagrees we did one. Whether it's lawful or not, that's the argument. We did do it.
Whether it's effective.
Whether it's effective, lawful, all that is to be disagreed on. I accept that, but we did do a consultation. The fact that I think we shouldn't have settled in a confidential manner doesn't matter now, because that is done and I'm bound by that process. And I can only go back to court and argue it if I genuinely think they came to the wrong answer, and I just don't.
Why not? You've got a room full of people saying that they're not happy with you giving one landowner £107,000, then I think that needs to be answered.
So my view is we've only paid appropriately what we should have paid. We've tried to reduce that cost as much as possible, and actually they were right all along, and we do have to take the trees down. So I can't go back to court because I actually now agree But what was agreed was the right agreement. You can't go back and argue black is white.
But you
So
said
that's
you
the
did it-
difficulty.
You did it the wrong way.
We should never have done
So
it in a
how
way
do you
which was
remedy
confidential.
that for us?
I can't remedy it for you.
So basically we've got to suck it off.
I can't remedy it. I wish I could remedy it. I can't remedy it because to try and remedy it, I'm going to cost what it's going to cost a lot more money.
Oh, so it is about money. You said it wasn't about money.
Well, because it won't change anything. So this is my problem. If I could change not having to take the tree, if I could change the issue of not having to take the trees down, absolutely, I'm willing to go and spend some more money to try and do that. But I just don't think we're going to spend money not achieving anything other than where we are now. And that's my
So
problem.
can we just be clear of 2 facts, please, if we might? First, you are saying categorically that all 3 trees are causing damage to the adjoining building.
Yes.
Yes, okay? And secondly, the out-of-court settlement requires abatement of nuisance.
Yes.
And now, abatement of nuisance is something that is within the council's field to judge.
Well, it
requires us to
take the trees down.
It doesn't mandate felling trees. It just mandates a remedy.
Let me be clear. It does ask us. It tells us.
So it says in black and white.
We need to take the trees
Even
down.
though you often don't see
the agreement
legal
is to take
material, but in this case you have seen the legal material.
The
and
agreement
it says
is to take the trees down.
Chop down the trees.
Yes, that's the agreement.
So it's an unusual agreement in the framework of those sort of orders, which generally simply require the law to be followed and nuisance to be abated. So this is an exception, is that correct?
I don't know whether it's an exception or not.
Oh, right.
But we have agreed to remove the trees.
Our tree expert said it was very, very unusual, but
Very
it
unusual.
wasn't just a
Not only is it defective to handle a complaint of this kind through an out-of-court settlement, looking at watch, but you've entered into an unusual agreement, even in the framework of those types of agreements. You've entered into an exceptional agreement.
I don't know. You're putting words into that.
No, I'm just following a line of reasoning.
No, I don't know the answer to that. We have agreed to take the trees down. That's what I can say. So I'm going to come to David, and then I'm going to go sort of weave my way back around to the front. So David, start.
Yeah, thank you. Are you clear in your own mind that it's all 3 trees that are doing damage to property, or just one in particular? Because if it's one in particular that's pushing up, say, the kitchen floor, right, and I can't see the other trees expanding that far, because they're quite far apart. Why should the other 2 trees have to suffer just for one? Which may have to.
It's the key question. Why 3
causes? Why should all 3 come down?
It isn't just one route.
Sorry?
It isn't just one route. It is an intermingling of the roots of all 3 trees. So all 3 have to learn. In my mind, that's clearly the answer.
That's presumably from the evidence that you are unable to tell. So why not show us the whole thing?
Excuse me, can you just mind, keep quiet a minute, it's just my question, right? Okay, if the trees are that far apart, which I believe I can't see how, the roots can go that far, causing that damage. Maybe one tree in particular could be doing it, but I can't see all 3. So could we not have another look at this and look at the 2 trees that are furthest away to see whether or not they have to suffer as well?
They have to come down. But if you ask me whether in my mind I'm certain of that, I am.
But you haven't taken an independent agricultural perspective.
So the lady next to me, then I'm going to be to the lady behind you, the young lady first, then the lady
like the report for the kind that would have happened in February. So if it was a draft on someone's computer, does the person writing the draft just have to say, look, it's going to say that there aren't any bats, and then that's enough for you to cut down? What's the point in actually having it written up then?
So
at that point?
in all cases, we are absolutely obliged to ensure that we immediately, before we remove any trees, there are no bats but it doesn't matter whether how you do a report. The law is about making sure there are no nesting birds and no roosting bats. That's what you're trying to protect.
Yeah, but why would you have this survey done if it was pointless?
Well,
we just had to go there on the day and say, oh, there's no bats.
we did the surveys prior to previous attempts to remove the trees. That's why we've done the survey.
Then why wasn't it written up?
Well, you don't have to write it up. So this is the issue.
It was partially written up then.
Well, so this is the issue with the police. So the law is you have to make sure there's no roosting bats and no nesting birds.
But
that's
nobody
what
turned
we
up
were
on the
doing.
day. There wasn't anybody there on the day.
So that's the law. That's the bit you've got to check.
But you haven't answered my question. Why was there a partially written up report by someone on holiday? Why wasn't it finished?
Because
why wasn't it there?
I don't know the details, but the person who no, it wasn't half done in the assessment. So the assessment had been undertaken, and that person had reported that we were clear to go and take the trees down. Then we were committed on the day to have an ecologist on the day also check in, and that was in place. The police said they would like a written report. That's when we couldn't provide the written report. The guy was on holiday. The report wasn't complete. We couldn't provide it. The law doesn't say you've got to have a written report. The law says you've got to make sure that there are no nesting birds and roosting bats. We had done that.
No, you hadn't. Nobody turned up on the day. Nobody was
I
there.
know, but we were ready to have somebody turn up on the day.
Sorry?
We intended for somebody to...
Intended?
No, we would have had if we were going to...
Would have had before, but you were there with the chainsaws ready and there was no ecologist on site. This is retrospective, but it's just another example of your disingenuousness.
No.
Can I just come in here, because in terms of there being a report of work undertaken in advance, I think there needs to be either an ecologist or a nominated person there on site. And it was part of the Cornwall team. There was a nominated person who remained in the van and didn't come out.
That's what we were told.
But there was a commitment that person would have checked on the day.
The nominated person apparently wasn't on site. That's what I'm saying in terms of whether checking.
It was utterly cowboy. It was cowboy.
Well, it wasn't a cowboy. We have an obligation to check immediately before we take the trees down, because that is how you do it. So you do a report. Doesn't matter whether it's written or verbal. We have somebody, an expert, who says, I can confirm there's no birds or bats nesting or roosting, and then you've got to check on the day. And we did have somebody as part of the team ready to check on the day.
That is an absolute lie. There was nobody there.
Well, look, I wasn't there, but that's what...
No, we were.
Well,
And it's on film.
I don't think you know.
No, it was on film. Zoe filmed. Did they going, oh, there's something, they're on their way.
The police
They're
made
on
their
way.
inquiries. They
They weren't in the
No,
van.
the police asked for a written report.
Yes, but there was, let's just stick to it, there wasn't anybody there.
Well, I think there was somebody who was going to be I think we just had an argument we can't...
No, but we were there, Phil. We were there. And you weren't.
Yes, but you didn't know that there wouldn't have been somebody to make
Yeah, we
that
did because we
assessment.
asked.
What, because he was invisible?
Everybody knows this. There must have been a bloke in a van who could have popped out and said, you're all right.
That is falsely representing the situation.
You can talk.
I was in the, let's be clear, I was in the pre-planning meetings. It was absolutely the intent to check on the day. Absolutely. It may not have happened. You may not have seen the person. No, there was an absolute commitment that we would check on the day. That was the requirement.
Minuted meetings.
I was on those preparatory meetings and we absolutely were insistent. Well, we didn't take trees down.
No, because we were there.
That's not a rebuttal to that.
It is a rebuttal because we would have only needed to do that on-site check if we'd taken the trees down. You don't need to do it if you're not taking the trees down.
But so at what point were you going to do it? At what point?
We absolutely have an obligation to check. If the police were not happy that we could provide the evidence, they would have stopped us. They stopped us. They asked us for a written report. We couldn't provide a written report, so we went away. The police had the absolute right to intervene in that way. That's what happened. We do have an obligation to check immediately before we take the trees down, and we will always do that. So we can take the trees down. Mavis, do you want to go back?
This is farcical.
There's been a lot of transparency
Yeah.
and a lot of disingenuousness throughout this entire process. And that's made a lot of people unhappy.
Yeah.
Okay, after the order happened, you could have done everything right past that point, but you didn't, in my opinion.
Because we've been banged by the green.
No, but there's other things you've done wrong with like the ecology survey, etc.
Well, I'm not going to go back to the ecology survey. We have an obligation to make sure that there are no birds or bats that are roosting or nesting, and I believe that we've been doing that all along.
Also, why is there public evidence of one tree root being a nuisance, but no public evidence of anything else? Like, if there was no evidence at all, okay, but why is there some evidence and then more?
I don't think there is any. We haven't released information.
It's on the planning portal. There's a
So you have
survey
released
on the
it?
planning portal. It's dated September 2021. It shows the one tree root under the flagstone floor. There are 2 tree roots in the garden, which of course doesn't count because the level of the garden's been lowered anyway, and isn't that where you find tree roots anyway in the garden? There is 1 tree root.
So that
in
was
that
to do with
survey.
an application, not to do with the news.
True.
But in
But
terms of the
you say you
timeline-
have other information which proves otherwise.
Not submitted
Is that
as
right?
part of a claim.
Is that right?
Part of a
What was the
claim.
claim before that public evidence was released?
Probably.
So that was part of a planning application. The planning applications are public in nature.
Okay, sorry.
So you can see a planning application. You can see anything anybody submits with it. So anything that came with that application is absolutely public information. What isn't public information is the evidence submitted as part of the legal claim. That's the difference.
Which somehow is very different from that which wasn't that much later.
I'm going to come to this lady here and then work my way back, I think. Yes.
Thank you. Can you speak to the, so we can't see the evidence that you have, but can you speak to the techniques that you use to gather that evidence? You mentioned photographs and also, particularly as it's arisen, that it's all happening within the council team and within Cormac, how does the council ensure that you're using the best and most up-to-date techniques to make these assessments?
So essentially it is holes and photographs. So that's what the evidence is of photographs, because that's the only technical way you can really do this.
So just in terms of identifying where the roots are coming from, because I'm not by any means an ecologist, but my understanding of roots is that they are interconnecting trees. And so, you know, in terms of then assessing which tree is causing the damage and how we then prevent it, that seems very complicated. And it just strikes me as incredibly strange that we have such different, people saying such different things. And so I'm really intrigued, because it wasn't internally done, is the council operating under the best techniques that can be done? And how might you propose improving the techniques by which you assess?
Well, I think it's compelling from the photographs that we've seen and the holes in the photographs. It is compelling.
But do you use any other technology?
We haven't here. There is other technology you can use, but you don't need to if you've got a compelling position. And let's be frank, this has been to our insurers, who would fight our case on our behalf, and they agreed with this position. The technical team that advised them agreed with that position. We've re-looked at it, and I've looked at it, and Paul's looked at it, and other people have looked at it. We all agree that it's clear evidence.
But you're all operating internally within
I
the
know.
team. And so how do you ensure that you are using the most up-to-date practices?
Well, if we thought that we needed another interpretation or it wasn't clear, we would go and do that. But it isn't.
It's like, but that's like saying, if, like, how do you know what you don't know? You know?
Well, I know what I can say.
Like, what do you guys as a policy do to ensure that the people making these assessments are using the most up-to-date technology, knowledge out there? Like, what do you do? Do you send them on training? Like, what tech do you have? Like?
So I don't know the detail of that, but we use Cormac to do our work. Okay. Well, we use Cormac to do all of our technical assessments in this sort of respect in the highway. They have the expertise, not us. We do have people who understand about trees and all that sort of stuff.
within our environment team, but we use the technical assessment of Cormac, and they do have access to as much modern technology as we need them to have access to. So we take advice from them about what we can and can't do. So we absolutely talk to industry experts about what the best assessment is in this case, and we get that best assessment.
But are they not like kind of maintenance and building company? Like you talk
No,
about
they've
you
got
have your
professional,
own-
they are a professional servicing company as well. So they don't only go and, so Cormac don't only go and lay roads, they do a lot of our technical and professional work for us. They are a professional services organisation in their own right, and if they haven't got that specific skill set or technology, they can go out and access it and buy it in. So they act as our professional technical advisors. So I'm going to come to this lady because she hasn't asked a question, then I'm going to work my way back because the lady there hasn't asked a question either.
Right. Well, as it seems that Cornwall Council determined that the trees are going to come down, please can you give us a time scale for next week and how you think you're going to proceed? Because I think we have the right to know exactly what's going to happen, what day, and what your plans are for the trees that are going to be put in their place.
So I can give you a view about the day, but I can't be precise because it does depend on how things unfold on the day. So the intention is to go in next Monday and take those trees down. At some point in the morning, we will do that ecological assessment to make sure there are no birds or bats that are roosting or nesting. And then essentially we will make sure the site, it might be slightly different order, but the site is fenced off so that it's safe to do those works. And then we will do those works. So we will start in the morning, we'll come and we'll do those works, but it needs both the fencing of the site and it needs the ecological assessment before anything can happen. We need to make sure the area is safe for the public, and only then can we proceed and take the trees down. So that's the intent next Monday. We're not being secretive about that. We've never been secretive about this. I've always said, Paul's always said, we're not keeping this secret. If we intend to go and take the trees down, we'll tell people what the intent is and when, and that's what we're doing. So that it will be Monday, but I can't say the trees will actually come down at X o'clock because I don't know, because it depends on the assessment, getting the fences in place, and then getting the contractors in, and then taking the trees down, and that will just have to work its way through on Monday morning.
And how many people are in the way?
Well, it depends on the public and what's there and how that happens, absolutely, and how the police respond to that. And all of that is in the equation. So that's why I can't say it will be managed on the site on the day, but as I say, absolutely fencing, absolutely ecological assessment first, before you can do anything else.
Can I just step in briefly? This is about timings of this evening. If there are new questions, people really want to ask questions, then really keen that people do that. If we plan to go on beyond 8 o'clock this evening, then that would just be I guess an exception that we need to plan in. So I guess it's 10 to 8. If there's ability to ask questions, if you haven't done, keep them succinct. We'll try and keep the answers succinct. But we do need to consider an end point. Wow. Okay. I think we'll stop now.
I think that's your answer, Laurie. People really want to ask questions.
I absolutely understand that, and that's why I'm raising this now. So if we do continue, just think about whether it's repeating any questions that have been asked before. That's
Not had an answer yet.
Yeah, we'll work through the questions. So, I know, let's
about the digging the tree pits for the new trees and how soon they are going to go in.
So, I don't know exactly the answer, but we're really, really keen that we get them in this planting season. So, part of the desire to get on with this is to make sure we don't miss this planting season, which ends in the spring, as you know. So, we've got to do quite a lot of civil works before we do that. And the intention is the civil works will be done as soon as possible, and the trees will be planted before the spring. So that's why we're keen to get on, because we need to do the civil works and we want to plant those trees.
Will that include the tree that's already been cut down at the corner of Florence?
Yes, taking that tree root out, yes. So I'm going to go to the lady there, she hasn't asked a question, and then the lady behind, and then I'm going to come back and work my way back. So,
is there a time limit on the MDA? Are the public likely to ever get sight of it? And
Do you acknowledge that the information given to Falmouth Town Council was insufficient for the first planning application?
I'm going to be really honest. I don't know whether there's a time limit on the agreement. Don't know. There must be something about these things being made public at some point, I guess. I don't know the answer, sorry. On the first planning application?
I'm a member of the Town Council Planning Committee, and we did not have all the information when that application.
I don't know enough to say whether that's right or not.
So if you could take that back to make sure that the town does get full info.
You should get full info, but I don't know whether you did or didn't. So, okay, I don't know. I honestly don't. The lady behind in the middle.
How much does it cost to unnecessarily and prematurely dispatch a Cormac team at 7 a.m. to fell trees without the proper paperwork having been completed? And follow-up question to that: how do you reconcile that with the repeated statements that Cornwall Council's interests here are to keep the costs down as much as possible for the public?
Well, what I would say is we're obliged to take the trees down. You might not agree, but that's our position. Therefore, we have to do those works. I don't know what the cost of taking those trees down is going to be.
No, sorry. I was asking specifically how much does it cost to get a team of Cormac guys to come out and...
I don't know that cost. We have an agreement about how much we pay for their time and work, but I don't know. I can't tell you.
In that case, I do have a suggestion that will save you loads of money. Use a different company to do the consultations, then the company who will get the award of the job upon the decision. You're welcome.
I think the consultations were done by the council, not by Cormac. I think they were done by Cormac. Okay. The council essentially and Cormac are an extension of the same because we own them.
Exactly. It's
they are an
so you
extension
need
of us.
as the another person said a few questions back, you need an external advisory.
Well, and of course, we don't have to use Cormac. We can and sometimes do use external advisors.
Well, that would save a lot of trouble if you did that.
Well, sometimes it may and sometimes it won't, because there's an efficiency. In retrospect, it may have, but there's an efficiency in using our own company because they're there. Essentially, any profits Cormac make is
apart from Cornwall Council.
Yeah, they do have some other customers. So there is an efficiency. That's why we use them. There's an efficiency in using our own company. But yes, we are free to use others. We didn't in this case. Next time, would we or not? We'd look at the circumstances and make that choice.
I would highly suggest making it a rule because it's actually just kind of a basic process.
No, because they are an extension of us, and we use them as much as we can where appropriate, and that's how we work to make it as efficient as possible. But we always have a choice, so we can decide not to. So now I was going to just work my way. So it's lady here, there, and then here. I'm going to come to you, and then I'm going to work back. So the lady here first.
Yes, so if those trees do come down, can the trees themselves be given, say, to the university for arts projects? Because they've
absolutely, if I want them.
Because we want to store the carvings. That's been our those trees for 60 years, not...
If you want to do that, and there's a request from somebody who we know would be responsible to take them, absolutely happy to try and see. Absolutely. The lady here, yes, the lady there with the
Right, I've known these trees since 1992, and I love them, and I'm really sorry to see them go.
My question, this is, I think, a lot bigger than these three trees. Three trees are quite big. It does make me wonder what's going on in the council, what else is going on. But my question is, did you have any idea that we would be so upset about this and how important the trees are in our environment? Did you have any clue about this?
No, not really.
And have you figured it out?
No, I
And that we will be watching a lot more of what's happening?
And you should, because the whole point of the council is that you should be able to public scrutiny. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
We didn't do this right. I've already said that. Absolutely. And I know, I've been in this business, being an employee of a council for a very long time, and I've stood in front of lots of public meetings and I've had conversations, and I absolutely know that the public have a right and are interested in what goes on, and we want them to be.
Then somebody should have known better.
I genuinely don't believe that the council should be be beyond public scrutiny in any respect, but is of public interest, and that's why I admitted right at the start we should have never wrapped this up in a confidentiality.
These happen a lot with these confidentiality.
No, yes they do, but not in respect of things that then need public consultation and go through a public process. And I think that's what's wrong here. Is if this were, I know it's a simple example, if it was a pothole and it damaged your car, I have no objection because nobody cares about us filling a pothole in. In fact, they want us to. So that's absolutely appropriate, isn't it, to wrap it up however we do to protect ourselves. But where it needs then, we should not enter into an agreement which is confidential that then requires us to go into the public domain to consult, because those two things are at odds with each other. We shouldn't do that.
Under what circumstances normally don't have things wrapped?
I don't know, but they are when it's appropriate to limit costs. That's what we do, just like any other organisation. If you think you can limit your liability by having an agreement, you will.
Can you give us some examples of cases? Like obviously not a pothole.
HR is not a common use, I think, in terms of...
So dealing with staff?
Yeah, that's right.
So every company, council's no different, the council perhaps doesn't do this, doesn't do it very much at all. But all companies, if they have a dispute with a member of staff, they either take the risk that they'll go to court or an employment tribunal and this lose it, or they settle. That happens all the time in business. The council generally doesn't settle because we know actually it's really in the public interest of trying to get their money, so we argue things more than perhaps other organisations do. But yes, those are the sorts of approaches.
I can see those are in-house things, but dealing with members of the public.
I think it's quite rare, and I've never come across this situation before.
So what's special about this situation then?
Well, I think it's special. Well, special is probably the word, isn't it? Why is it unusual?
Yeah.
Because I've never come across a situation where a confidentiality agreement about something that then needs to go in the public domain.
So there's
I've never been involved in that.
That is different from other situations, and that is why everybody in this room then starts to look and say, well, is it about the people who actually live there? Is that what's different?
But I can't say exactly why, can I? All I can say is that I've seen any incident or evidence that that's the case. No, I haven't. Absolutely haven't.
Unusualness is doesn't.
I think it was done for the right reason.
Unique, I think, was the word, unique.
Confidentiality out of court settlement was made before any public consultation at all, meaning that the council was actually inevitably only going to come to one conclusion.
I think it meant we were predisposed to do that, but that would not preclude us taking a different decision if something had come up to show we should have taken a different decision. So it's a good challenge, and I agree that, that's a great question because it does go to the heart of the issue. But I genuinely think if something had come up, and even today, if something had come up to persuade us to change our mind, we would.
Well, we will come.
No, but that doesn't change our mind. If it had, we would have changed our mind.
Well, legal objections doesn't change the
People
mind.
who say that it could be protected or removed or relocated.
But lots of people say that, and lots of people, interestingly, have not put their written evidence or name to that proposition. So people have said that they've got legal advice from the barrister, that our consultation, I won't say that. Nobody sent
We can ring him up and he can tell you right now.
nobody sent me a written piece of information and legal advice to challenge.
I think they have.
Where is it?
Here you go.
Boy, you haven't submitted it to us.
Because it's ours and you haven't submitted yours to us.
Well, that's fair, but I can only look at what I'm looking at. So that's the point. From what I've seen, but an article in the press does not trump the advice I'm getting from my chief legal officer. It just doesn't.
Is this going to have to go to court? Is that the only way?
Well, it won't go to court unless somebody takes it to court. That's the law. It doesn't end up in court. It doesn't unless somebody challenges it. Of course, you can challenge. Anybody can use the law to challenge at any point of time. If you think you've got a case, go to your solicitor, barrister, and challenge us legally. We have legal challenges all the time. We're used to that sort of process.
Very expensive.
That hasn't, no, it's expensive, but people do it all the time. We've probably got more. The use of people, of using lawyers to challenge us has increased because people have become more and more aware of the law. So we know that happens. That's your right to do that, but nobody has done that in this case at this So we haven't had that legal challenge.
How would I avoid that? I'm not talking about legal challenge.
Well, we haven't had the evidential challenge either. We haven't had it in that way. Nobody sent me a report that I put their name to today. I absolutely know that those trees can stand up with compelling evidence. Nobody's done that. Gentleman behind.
Thank you. First question was how much were the sort of relevant elected committees involved
Not at all.
in this? Not at all. Okay, thank you. And second of all, you sort of said rightly earlier that the sort of case officers will handle this stuff, and that's with the consent on a trust basis with the elected councillors. So I suppose we've got Cornwall councillors in the room, and I want to know: do you have faith in the people that have taken these decisions, and what do we think should go?
That's a great question. I can't answer.
Let
me be really, really clear. I do not believe any of the elected members genuinely knew what was happening in this case, and they definitely were not involved prior to that legal agreement being put in place. I can't. Well, I can never say definitely, can I? But from everything I've seen, they were not involved in this process. They have inherited this in the very same way, in a way that I did. Yes, of course they were there. The cabinet member actually wasn't, because he didn't stand until the May elections and was then elected in. But they didn't know. They weren't involved in those earlier decisions. They've inherited this in the same way that the public has. If that helps.
I suppose what I mean is it looks like processes weren't followed correctly. You've admitted
No,
yourself.
because we didn't have.
We
didn't have a duty to consult the elected members. It was a issue that would normally be dealt with within the council, within the process of the council, at an officer level, so it was seen as an operational decision. Of course there's a public interest. In my view, of course the councillors ought to have been properly made aware of the consequences of this, because that's why we shouldn't have agreed something in court that then precluded us from having those proper and full conversations. But all I'm saying is, in this case, they were not involved before that agreement was put in place.
No, I suppose my question was, that, do the Cornwall councillors here have faith that the officers have done,
in terms of the
respected their office?
member relationship, I'm not going to make any public comment about anything because it's not appropriate for members, because in terms of officer role, responsibility, accountability. So I'm not going to answer that question this evening. I've got concerns about the process, and I've been vocal and had long-standing issues, and I've been living this with Stop the Chop and others for a year, and all the questions that have been raised today are the vast majority, if not all of them, are ones that have been asked in the campaign or myself over the course of the 12 months. But I'm not going to comment publicly on individuals' involvement or trust or anything like that.
Your elected representative, as Councillor has just said, absolutely been asking more than this person over the last year. It's absolutely true. And they've been trying to hold us to account in that way by asking those questions quite frequently.
Just a point of clarity on that, I was on the town council when this began, and I was asking these questions, and initially the Cornwall councillors were saying what they were being told by officers, but then gradually began questioning that, largely as a result of the actions of Stop the Chop actually getting in the way, and started coming down to the protest as well, which has been great to see. And it's really sad, however, that Cornwall councillors have had to lose trust in the officers that they're working with.
Well, I think that final comment I'll just put to one side, but it's absolutely true that it's the involvement of the public which has caused us to delay and relook at it. It's absolutely true. That is true. So I'm going to now try and work my way backwards and then conclude the meeting, I think. So the lady, I'm going to let you come back, and then I'm going to go behind and then across, and then just weave our way to the back and finish with the gentleman at the back in the corner. No, it's the young lady with slightly blonde hair. Sorry, I'm right.
So you said you've seen photo evidence, evidence that means that it's all three trees.
Yes.
What is a arboreal technique that allows you to look at a tree root in a kitchen and just determine which tree it's from? I'm not saying what was the technique. I'm just asking for a general technique, because general techniques are known to the public.
So I think what you have to the issue for me isn't that there is one tree root affecting the kitchen and that's it. There's multiple roots.
Okay, but there has to be ones tested that came from different trees. So what is a technique of determining what tree a tree root is coming from when you cannot see? Because otherwise we
No, part of the problem is you can't see where all of those roots, because they are intertwined. It's a match of council roots quite deep.
So
So you can't see all of
three
it.
trees.
You just chop the walls out anyway.
You can't see, but it's an intermingling of all of those roots which is causing the
How
damage.
do you know what's the technique of knowing that it's
I am confident that those roots are all causing damage.
But you also said that you can't tell like which tree because they're interlinked.
I can't say to you, I know which tree that roots come from.
Okay, so describe a technique used in like trees, looking at trees that allows you to tell which tree a root is coming from.
I don't know. So all I can tell you is what I've seen, which is photographs.
So from the photographs you can tell it was all three trees because you said that previously.
You can see how all those roots come into the site, yes.
Yes, but that's not my question.
They're intermingled and they're all going under that property.
One single tree can have lots of intermingled roots, that's how roots work.
No, you can't. But from the evidence you can see it's on three trees.
How?
You can.
How?
Visually you can see it.
How?
From the holes that have been...
Holes? In different directions.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, so how do you know it's all three trees? What is any technique of
Colour
finding out what...
It's a visual assessment. It is a visual assessment from what you can see from the evidence that you can see.
By non-independent. Your pits are not the property though, are they? Your pits are not the
There's evidence
property.
from that. No, but when part of the claim was other evidence submitted to us, and that's what we can't share.
Yes, but you can say a technique that could be used to, like, determine where a tree root is coming from. I'm not asking for the technique.
I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can. But from my point of view, it's absolutely clear that there are roots emanating from all of those trees which are causing damage to that property. I'm sure there are techniques that you could apply. I don't know what they are. It's not my expertise at all.
But how could you have gotten...
Because you can see from the evidence, you can see that there are roots coming in from all those trees. So it's laid next to you.
Did you wonder why the previous occupants didn't put a claim in?
Don't know the history of that. They don't have to.
Lost money selling that house.
Well, we may have thought we just need to sell it and that will be somebody else's problem and
They
they'll
just
buy
need
it inheriting that issue to resolve. I don't know.
Yeah, they must be gutted.
But I come back to the point that if there's a nuisance to somebody's property, the ownership of that doesn't matter. Whoever owns that property at whatever time has a right to have that nuisance remedied.
So
That's what they've
could
done.
you have, in effect, paid it out twice? You know, could you have paid it to the previous occupants and then the...
No, I think the nuisance is the nuisance and you deal with that issue.
Right.
It's a once only issue. I'm absolutely certain we wouldn't pay somebody again for the same issue.
No.
There was a very, and I don't know the details, but I do know that this has been going on for a number of years prior to us entering into that agreement. So the claim from the previous owner, whoever that was, and I don't know who that was and when it changed hands, but there was a claim in against us, arguing, and they spent a long time trying to get our interest and agreement that we needed to do something. And then we did agree. So it wasn't that we just agreed it had been going on for some time. So it must have changed ownership during that period.
Yeah, I mean, I lived right opposite and they lived there for years and I think they were aware of the problem, but they just...
They never put in a claim.
No.
I'm certain we've only had the one claim again. So I'm going to go to David and then I need to keep going.
Yeah, thank you. It's linked to my first question. What the lady just said, I think is a case here. I honestly believe it is one road tree that is causing the damage.
Yeah.
Because, unless you can determine why should the other two trees, I believe, have to come down as well. I can understand one coming down, it's causing damage to the kitchen, pushing them, but you haven't really determined which trees are actually causing damage. I suggest it's the one closest to the kitchen, dead opposite, I believe the wall is down, they're taking the wall down. Okay, I believe that's a road tree, so why are you taking down the other two? And you did say at the beginning, Phil, that you haven't actually been into the property to see for yourself. It's a pity really, because maybe you might have a slightly different view on the matter. If you could see the damage, that maybe that...
I've seen the reports, I haven't been in.
But you only see photograph evidence.
Well, that's what we see in written evidence.
Yeah.
You see photographic and written evidence.
And the trouble is, I'm not going to accuse anybody of this, but with this AI going on at the moment, all photographs can be adjusted slightly to make them look worse than what they are. I'm not saying, you know, it's actually in this case, but I do believe it is one row tree. And of course, the other two now are going to suffer because of one. I don't have right.
I have to politely disagree because I think absolutely clearly it's all three trees causing damage.
Although, funnily enough, the property owner's surveyor would agree with you because that's what the report says.
How can you be completely convinced that all three trees need to come down when you can't tell us any techniques beyond it looks like it from a photo that the roots belong to all
Photographic
the trees?
evidence.
But you haven't said a technique for how you find which tree the roots come from.
Yeah, or just take one tree down.
But we sometimes need to do technical
You don't have
surveys.
to take all three trees down. You can do root barriers for the other two
You can't.
trees if they're
You can't. If
necessary.
you cut those roots off, because that's the only sure way you're going to stop that nuisance, you will destabilise all of those trees. I'm absolutely certain. From the evidence and from the photographs, all three trees need to come out. You might not agree with that. I am saying to you, that's what I believe is the case, and that's the representations which were made as part of the claim. The insurance company agreed with it, our technical advisors agreed with it. I believe that's the case. I wish I didn't have to take them all down, because I wouldn't be taking them all down. Absolutely would not. But I genuinely, there's nothing in this, absolutely nothing in this for the council to take more trees down than we have to. Genuinely isn't. We don't want it. There's wider point about does this mean more trees will come down? No, it doesn't. Absolutely not. We want to keep as many trees in place as we possibly can. I want to plant more street trees, and I found out we've put a bit of, we've put obstacles in the way of developers putting more street trees in, and I'm trying to unpick that so we can put more street trees in. Because I genuinely think trees are really important in urban places and people's environments. So we don't want to take trees down. We genuinely think we have to. You can disagree with that, and that's absolutely fine. But my job is to make that judgment at the end of the day and say whether I think actually we should spend more money on this and argue it. I genuinely don't think we can. I don't think it will result in a different answer. So I'm going to go to this lady and then come across. So this lady first, and then I'm going to come across to you. That's it. Lady in blue.
I know you're expert actually being inside the property at all, just to look and see what the problem is.
No, we've had evidence from the adjoining properties experts. They've submitted that. We've done our own trial holes and we've got that evidence. And that evidence together, our advisors are telling us it's compelling. And as I say, it wasn't just us, it was the insurance company agreed it as well.
They didn't look at it, they didn't go in and look.
I don't know whether the insurance company did or not at that point in time.
Somebody needs to have a look.
People have looked and people have provided written reports. And I get the point that now in the world where people can invent evidence, I don't think that's the case. I honestly don't think we've got a case of people who've invented this. I genuinely don't.
Who has looked in the house?
The people who made the representations that sent us their reports. I'm going to go to the lady here with the orange flowers.
Mine's just a quick question because I'm a little bit confused. I've always thought that the law was the law. Why have we got two versions of it? And are you going to double check that Cornwall Council's version of lawful removal of these trees on Monday morning is more right than the barrister who's acting for Stop the Jump?
So what I have to do is make that judgment, because actually...
So you're just going to guess, because the law
No,
is the law.
let me
You
explain.
can't just
So
make
it
a
falls-
judgment. You've got to look at the law is the law.
Let's be clear. People argue legal cases all the time. And you end up, the reason why loads of people go to court is because one person says this and another person says that. That is how the law gets determined. And we have legal cases that sometimes generate precedents, and that helps interpret the law. That is how our law works. People go to courts all the time to argue a different side of that argument. So I understand and accept that there are people here making different legal arguments. I have to say, because it is my responsibility in the end, to take advice, they're not to guess, take advice from the people who I would take advice from to advise me about whether we are lawful or not.
We've not read it.
I have taken advice. Paul Grant is the council's most senior legal officer. He is the council's monitoring officer. He acts independently from the council. He can call out the chief executive, he can call out councillors, he can call out anybody. He is there to uphold the law.
And he wasn't aware of the guidance being added in December 2023.
And he is absolutely advising me that this is lawful. From my own judgment, I also believe it's lawful. And I've seen how he's got to his conclusion. I know how he's got to his conclusion. And I absolutely agree with it as well.
So are you going to check out this amendment that made it, rather than guidance, made it law in 2023?
We know what the law was then. We've looked again at it because we were challenged quite rightly, and we still conclude that the consultation was lawful. In our view.
That's strange, because we still believe the consultation.
I get that. In fact, when people always have contrary legal arguments, but all I can do is take the best advice I can take and go
But
with
your
that.
best advice from your monitoring officer, we sat in a meeting and he didn't even know that it had become law. He was saying it was guidance.
He said, humour me that I don't know.
Yeah, I genuinely think he's gone away and looked at that again.
Is he going to refresh that?
We have rechecked that, and I will not allow this to happen unless I believe it's lawful. And if it's not lawful, then we can be challenged.
Must have regard, may have regard. Do you understand that?
I know you're challenging it, but we've looked at it, we've re-looked at it, and we've come to a different conclusion. That's all I can say. We will act on our conclusion unless we are actually stopped legally from doing this.
Or physically. I wonder which version of the law the police would take.
Well, that is a fair point, and it's a fair issue. It's a matter of whether we've done the consultation right is actually not a police matter, it's a matter of civil law in respect of the council versus a litigant, if there is one. The bit that the police are interested in is the criminal bit, which is the bit of the Wildlife and Countryside Act. They are interested, and that's why they stopped us before, because they said they wanted more evidence than we could provide about whether there were bats and birds. And so that bit is the police bit. The other bit, it is the council's responsibility to make sure it's lawful. And that's what the police will say to you. That's for the council to determine. Their bit is the wildlife and countryside bit. Was there anybody else here? No, the lady here and then the lady at the back. So the lady with the blue turquoise.
Yes, thank you. I'm concerned that some things I've heard from you have been based on, what is your opinion, the in-house advice.
Yeah.
You've referred to the technical teams, which seem to mean people like Cormac and the highway department.
Includes that.
Yeah. And you just referred to insurers, who are notorious. They have been responsible for taking down the most amazing numbers of trees throughout the country. Sheffield and Plymouth come to mind, particularly badly. But they're definitely not people to be consulting about the necessity for taking down trees. They are looking at their clients and the money that comes in from those clients. I haven't heard anything that convinces me that the information that you're relying on both in your own personal experience but also in your colleagues is extensive enough. For instance, to consult Cornwall instead of the Arboricultural Association seems like a massive gap in understanding the complexity and nuance of this. So for instance, if some of the trees, I would argue, are not causing so much of a nuisance that needs abating, they could be root contained. There's no talk about how a mature lime tree, its sort of importance in the environment is very significant. It's one of the best biodiversity trees you can plant, and certainly new ones don't replace that and won't for about 20, 30, 40 years. But I just don't feel very confident that you have enough information to make an informed decision on this, particularly given that the evidence is not available to anybody else. Lines are very, very robust. You can pollard, you can coppice, you can root ball and move. You could probably even prune a huge percentage out of the roots because they are so fibrously rooted and they're so robust. And I don't think you've had the information that you need to make an informed decision about the best way forward. Also, because the roots are as they are, it doesn't, just because you chop one tree root doesn't necessarily mean that the tree will just fall over. It might do if it was a taprooted tree, but not in the case of the lime. So I'm very concerned. I haven't heard anything
as far as I'm aware.
That's carried out by
And
Cornwall.
in Sheffield, as I understand it, it was a policy decision. It wasn't any, of course, it was driven by the fact that people were claiming against the council, but it was a policy decision to remove street trees. I'm just trying to reassure people we have made no such policy decisions in the council. We absolutely haven't. So we wouldn't be taking these trees down as a matter of policy or principle, or to do anything different other than to have street trees in that road. And we have committed to putting tree pits back and putting new trees back. So this isn't a matter of principle, it's a matter of an individual decision. There is no intent to do widespread felling of trees, not at all. We probably need to manage our trees a bit better, and that's a consequence probably of us cutting the budget for those sorts of things a bit too far.
That was going to be my next question, was have they been pollarded?
Don't know. But we definitely do not and have not managed our street trees as well as we probably should to make sure they don't. And the gentleman who's gone now, I think with the young lady, was making that point, wasn't he, about is this a wider issue? I think another lesson we've learned here is we should be managing our trees more than we have done, and we do not want to take them down, so we probably need to put a bit more money into managing trees in the streets. I think that's a lesson learned. The point about whether they need to come down, I genuinely believe that they still. I know I can't convince you. I know I can't share the evidence. So I don't know what to say because we have taken the view, and we are in the end the decision makers about whether that's the course of action we have to take. But fundamentally, we've agreed this in court, and we are obliged to do that because we agreed in court.
You didn't agree it in court. You agreed it out of court.
Okay, within the confines of the court agreement.
So my next question would be, given what's happened here and the fact that we are in a very serious environmental crisis globally, not just locally, but we really need to take this on board locally, even if you don't believe in climate crisis, which some people don't, some people do, all of this needs to be taken into account. So at what point will the council change its approach to environmental issues like this by inviting in other experts who are not just in-house? Cornwall's got a massive vested interest in just getting on with following, being the executives of the contracting for the council. In my experience, some people are very, very experienced, and some former employees are not. They have no idea. They tried to chop down a cherry blossom tree called Blue in Truro because they've got the wrong instructions from high up. So at what point will the council actually look at this in a bigger picture and broader?
So, I think in the sense of the broader climate, nature, biodiversity decline, I agree, I am absolutely on that side. Things are changing, and we're in a period of decline, not a period of growth in terms of the environment, which is definitely not where we should go. And the council is absolutely cited on that. I think it's fair to believe we are taking reports back to Cabinet about the actions that we need to be taking both against the climate action plan, in terms of the climate, carbon neutrality and nature recovery, and we're going to set out the actions that this Cabinet is going to take over the course of this period, and it's absolutely cited on doing the right thing in those respects. Of course we're constrained by money and by policy at a national level, but we are going to do our very best, and we have been judged nationally against other councils. We do come out quite well in terms of the actions so far, and I hope that we continue to do that. In respect of trees, we have been undertaking a massive tree planting programme. I'm a bit conscious that most people aren't seeing that. The Forest for Cornwall isn't an idle idea, it is actually a massive tree planting programme, and we are drawing down a lot of funding from DEFRA to help us plant a lot of trees, and that's actually going bigger and bigger. So at the very same time, we're unfortunately taking these trees down. We are planting a whole load of other trees, more than 1 million trees.
But planting trees doesn't replace like the wisdom of trees. It's wildly disappointing that we're talking about the destruction of trees, and there's no one here who can talk about, that's the first time I've even heard what type of tree it is. I understand you want to protect your team, but you can't speak to any of the technicalities or the science of the tree. It seems insanity.
Okay. I was answering the question about the widest...
I have to go.
He's wasting your time. Strategic point, and that was the point I was answering. And I'm just trying to explain that the mood and the policy and the direction of the council not to take trees down, it's to try and protect trees and to plant more trees. That's all I'm trying to say.
I'm very glad to hear it, and I feel sadly unconvinced that if anything comes up in any other way with somebody else's vested interest or whatever, that the trees will not be seen and protected.
We will try and protect every tree that we possibly can. That is definitely the policy position. So there was a couple more. So the lady in the middle at the back of the application.
My point really is that obviously determined to go ahead. Now, we live on Property Terrace, and I'm not anyone not that has a very that she is. And we are changing the definitely effect at the area that we chose to choose. And I think that everybody should now apply for council tax reduction because you have been determined to get rid of these kids. The things that you put pictures up of what you're replacing with is actually insulting.
Well,
And I think, so can you tell us now that if we make application to Cornwall Council to have our council tax reduced by £1 for what you're doing, that seems to me that the only thing you listen to is about money and it affects you in your pocket. And you pay no attention to the pocket otherwise.
You
We have
can't.
the right to be, actually have our feelings and our desires for an area that we live in, because there are many other trees in our area that I feel now we don't even dare. My mother tries to catch the bus up from the town and gets off in Albany Road, and the leaves are everywhere. We don't dare to bring that up as an issue because we think the first thing that you will do is say, oh, they've all got to come down because some elderly.
we won't do that, and if there's leaves and they're in the way and they're causing hazard, we should let us know because we should go and clear the leaves.
And that's not going to have an
No.
effect when you want to cut all those trees.
Absolutely, definitely not. You should report that because if it's unsafe, it's unsafe, and we have a duty to make that safe.
With the leaf blower.
Well, I know the leaf blowers, but generally that's what we use, don't we? Because we haven't got endless public money, because we are all.
But maybe you could spend, maybe the town could actually spend more on the living than it does the dead, because it is constantly in. They hide away in that little church thing in the churchyard and don't come out and actually tend things around.
I think that we have, over the last few years, taken too much money out of looking after our public realm, the bits that you walk on, the footpaths, the bits of and the new cabinet have come in and said exactly that, and they've challenged us to say how could we make that better, and we're talking to them about how we could do more work, keeping the public realm in a better condition than it is. Some of it came from us saying we wouldn't use glyphosate in the to weed control, but that's not the entire issue, but it is part of the issue. So we're now working with our cabinet about what we could do to make the public realm more tidy. We all think we've gone a bit too far in terms of cutting that management of the public realm. So I think we do need to do more in the public realm, that's my view. But it is about portioning money in the end, and there is more demand for that money than there is money to spend on public things.
We do like that you don't mow so much. Keep not mowing.
And this is the thing, so some people like us not knowing, some people think that's ugly and horrible.
And everyone went, no, you know, we should,
Well, you need to put signs up. You don't explain to people enough.
Well, all that's true. We don't do enough. That's absolutely true. But that isn't because of a lack of will. It's genuinely a lack of resource to keep doing more and more things.
It's possibly something to do as well that you need to corner. There are a lot, I'm sorry to say, many of them are really sluggish behaviour. I've had conversations with them about apps, and they look at me as though I'm completely crazy.
There's different people doing different jobs. I think that's the point. Was there anybody else? Who hasn't had the
I just wanted to say that something you could do to put this whole situation right is just try the root barriers. If lime trees are as robust as has been said, it might just work and it might save you a lot of
Well, we don't have the option to try something because we have agreed with the neighbours that that's the solution.
So you
If we thought there was, if we genuinely, so you said could you try something, if we thought that that might be successful, absolutely we would go back and argue it in court, but we don't believe it. I understand that, but we don't think that's the case, and we are the people who have to go back into court and argue it, and we don't
I
believe
don't
it.
see why you shouldn't just try it.
Because we haven't got the luxury of just trying something here.
So you do have the evidence that all three trees are causing damage to the adjoining building.
And that's why
Absolutely, categorically, you do have that evidence.
That's what we have. That's my view, yes.
No. My view is not the answer. It's, do you have the evidence?
In the end.
Black and white, do you?
In the end.
Not answers.
Let me explain. It's not appropriate to try and be a backroom barrister and try and catch somebody out and say you've got to
I'm not trying to catch you out.
you are. What you're
It's
trying to
really
do.
simple
What you're trying to do is
you either have evidence or you
you're
don't.
trying to get me to say a yes or no answer to
Yes,
something
I am.
which is
Yes, I
nuanced.
am.
And I've been in many situations
How
where
can evidence
I am not
be
prepared
nuanced?
to give a one-word
No, I get that.
answer
I get that.
when it needs an explanation.
Yeah, I get
Evidence is in many forms. I've learned that for a very long time. Evidence is many forms. It can be photographs. It can be a witness.
But it's not
It
what's
can,
just
it
in
can be
your
in an
mind.
expert tenant. It can be in an expert report. That all of that collectively is evidence, and somebody has to take a view of that evidence, and that's why you end up in court. Because one person takes a view of that evidence and says black, and another person
But
takes a
you
view and
danced
says
around
white.
the question of.
So somebody in the end.
You've taken a view, and that
I've
is
taken a
based on
view.
evidence.
I have taken a view on what I can see, and I have formed a view that they have to come down. Somebody has to be the arbiter of all those things, and that's why we have a judicial system.
Did you have a choice, Phil?
I don't believe I had a choice. No. If I thought I'd got a choice not to take those trees down, I would have absolutely wanted to take that choice not to
So
take
someone with more power has told you that?
No. Did I have a choice in terms of my position? Absolutely, I could have come to a different view. Nobody's told me to have a view.
So you view evidence, compelling evidence, that all three
I've
trees,
taken-
not just one, we all know about the root, all three trees are causing damage to the building.
What I've seen and what I've heard, I'm absolutely convinced that that is the answer.
So this is other people's views that you've taken on board and you've accepted, right?
Yes, it's
Rather
opinion.
like the legal opinion by a monitoring officer who didn't actually know the law last time around.
He does.
He did, didn't he? He might now.
He does now. I guess he's gone and done his homework now.
He does know.
Yeah. But you've taken an opinion. You've not, and the law's pretty straightforward. It's black and white. You've not looked at it yourself.
I'm not the legal expert, am I? I have to take advice.
But you told me, you've told us all in this room that you've got 100 years experience. So you are a bit of an expert.
Yes, I am.
Yes, you are an expert.
Yeah.
So you
In
have
generality,
you have the expertise to view the legal statute that governs it. It's pretty simple.
Yes.
It's really simple.
So somebody has to make those judgments in the end, and they take advice.
No, but you've not looked at it. You've left it with the absent legal officer.
It's a combination of looking at advice and
Who
taking advice.
didn't really care last time around.
He does care.
And
Absolutely does care.
somebody misbriefed, who was it, Councillor Rogerson, who gave a mistaken playback of that part of the law in council meeting about a week ago. Somebody misbriefed him on that occasion. Was that the same guy that you're taking advice from?
I'm not going to get into an argument about what other people have said, but I am absolutely confident in the advice that Paul has given. So, last question.
Just for clarity, in terms of the evidence that you have looked at and you feel has convinced you to get to this decision,
Yeah.
I would like to be clear that you have had extensive and very well informed information from an independent source like the Arbor.
That's not the case. I can't say that. We don't. That evidence hasn't come from somebody completely independent like you. That isn't the case. I've never said that.
No, that's
We haven't. That isn't the case.
Additional to that, can I just ask, is that something that, so it's kind of repeating the question I suppose just now, is that something the council might now consider doing?
Not in this case, no.
We've been asking for literally 10 months for that independent evidence to come forward, and the council has chosen, because they've got their expert in Phil Mason here, not to take that advice.
And we might do that in the future with other issues, not necessarily just this one, but in other ones.
Yeah, we do sometimes take independent assessments. Yeah, we do. We have no fixed rule that we can or can't take independent advice.
You just haven't done it this time.
We haven't done it in this case. So, thank you, Lolly, for staying, and for Mark, where's Mark gone? Down there, for keeping the council building open, because I know we've gone beyond our time. And thank you particularly for the residents for coming. It's been a necessary conversation, and I know that you don't like the answer. We know that, but I just wanted to come and have the opportunity to come and talk to you directly. So thank you.
Well, we do appreciate that.
Yeah, we do.
And it has been a masterclass in innovation. That's the advice I'm receiving.
Can I just invite everyone to come along on Monday morning? First thing, you know, it's people power that saved these trees to date, and looks like it's going to have to carry on being people power. This room is named after the former Labour MP of this area, Candy Atherton, and she was a Greenham Common woman. She used to go and cut the base, and this is her bolt cutter.
Whoa.
So there's an honourable history of non-violent direct action, and there you go. Candy Atherton's bolt cutters. Yeah, I think we need to finish this now. Thanks all those of you who watched this part. It's been going on a bit, and yeah, goodness. Let's just rewatch this, and let's have a think, and let's just be there on Monday morning, and let's support anyone who feels it needs to take on violent action to save these lovely trees, because clearly the council have no case taking them down. And, yeah.